Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your MC, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of grandiose things with microphones because I am an MC, ring announcer, and MMA cage announcer. And I am joined this week, as I always am, by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing first, on the left sides of your screens, from New York, Mark Priaulx. What's up, buddy?
What's up, boys? It was a beautiful 65-degree day in New York today. March Madness starts tomorrow. On Friday, I'm going to be in a bar in the city with my boys watching March Madness for the first time in years. Life is good right now. I'm feeling good.
That sounds fun. Very nice. And joining us on the right sides of your screens from the Sunshine State of Florida, the Nicaraguan nightmare, Omar Artola. Omar, say hi.
What's going on? I did not have that type of day today just because it was raining all day. But you know, that's
Stupid Florida.
Yeah, you know, it is typical Florida. I'm good with it. It'll be nice tomorrow, and I'll enjoy myself then.
I mean, nobody moves to Florida for the weather. Let's be real.
It must be all the nice people who can drive down here.
Well, gentlemen, we have a very exciting show, a full show, full of great fights to recap, as well as exciting fights to build up to. We're going to start, as we always do, with our first segment, On the Marquee. We're going to discuss fights from this past weekend from both from UFC, Bellator, and One Championship. We're going to throw a few fights into our lightning round, which is always a blast. We're going to find out who fell and who rose in our very own ranking system, the Priaulx Rankings. We're going to find out what's new inside the MMA sphere with Omar. And then we're going to look ahead to this coming weekend, UFC Fight Night, Volkov versus Aspinall. I cannot wait for a number of fights this coming weekend, a huge fight night card. Before we get into any of this, guys, to our audience, please share this video with somebody who you know who loves MMA and might not yet know about our show. Be like, hey, you like MMA, right? And they'll be like, yeah, of course. Hey, have you heard of And New MMA Show? They'll be like, no, please send me an episode. Boom, new listener. Thank you so much. If you're watching this right now, go ahead yourself and subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode. Like this video. If you want audio only, just so you know, we are on every podcast platform that you can think of where you might be getting your podcasts. And of course, join us in conversation on social media. Find us at @andnew_MMA show in all the places. With that being said, gentlemen, let's get started. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be John Mel de Pedra, Hands of Stone Lineker, who this past Friday at One Championship, lights out, put Bibiano Fernandes' lights out. See what I did there?
Okay,
scoring
yeah.
a tremendous knockout victory over Fernandes, which came at 3 minutes and 40 seconds of round number 2, winning the One Bantamweight Championship. Anybody who knows, John Lineker, longtime veteran of the UFC, now is over at One Championship. So, guys, let's discuss this milestone in John Lineker's career. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your reaction to his huge title victory at One?
First of all, between the pronunciations and everything there, you can't intro a guy better than that. I mean, this is why he gets paid the big bucks, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, when John Lineker left the UFC, I'm not sure he thought he was going to be seeing any time on the marquee. And here he is.
That's right.
That was a big one. The fight was absolutely fantastic. Probably my favorite fight of the whole weekend. Bibiano, first off, came in looking enormous. And I've said this before. Are we testing over there in One? Because, like, the man, come on. Like, it looked like he was pumped full of I don't know what. But came in looking huge. Great shape for a 41-year-old. They went right at it. Lineker is just winging hammers, as he's prone to do. Soon enough, he has Bibiano doing the same. Devolves into a firefight. I mean, both guys are dropped in the fight. Bibiano does get his takedowns, and Lineker has to show he can survive on the mat, which he does. The fight had just about everything that we hoped for from these two. It had wild swings of momentum, and it had an absolute stamp of an ending. John Lineker became the new 145-pound champion and completed the passing of the proverbial torch by putting the legend Bibiano Fernandes absolutely out cold. It was an awesome moment. It was an awesome shot. It was great to see Bibiano back in a final war, if that is going to be his final fight, obviously at 41 years old. Who knows? But now we see what John Lineker can do here. We see how long he can hold this strap and dominate, and maybe he's about to be the new guy over there because he is scary at the moment.
Omar, when you watched Lineker knock out Fernandes in the second round there, what was your reaction?
I mean, the fight was a firefight. From the beginning of the bell, both of them I feel like just kind of said screw it and just kind of went to town on each other. And to be honest, the first one that dropped was Lineker. Lineker was the first one to get hit clean with a shot. I think it was a left hook that put him down on his butt. And there was some follow up there, and Lineker was able to get back up to his feet, and they kept working. And by the second round, Lineker seemed like kind of got his timing down a little bit and just kind of did the Lineker thing, duck and hook, and eventually found a chin for it. And I mean, Bibiano just didn't even know which side was up by the time the fight was over, man. It was wild.
It was a classic John Lineker fight that he found at the right time in his later stage of his career here. And guys, is this the first time that a non-UFC, non-main event is on the marquee?
A non-UFC, non-main event. Maybe.
This was the co-main of
maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Pretty
so.
Cool.
It's a great
Pretty
point.
Cool. Yeah. Talk to how, pretty solid this past weekend was in terms of fights overall. There was a lot of great fights that could have been on the marquee. Every week, folks, we have a little like mini discussion debate over who should be on the marquee. Very oftentimes, it kind of answers itself depending on who's in the main event of a UFC bout. But sometimes in a weekend like this, there's a lot of good bouts. So that being said, let's talk about where these guys go from here. What do you see next for John Lineker going from here? Omar, let me throw it to you first.
Oh, I've never actually taken a look at the one rankings because the one rankings are kind of weird. Mark, why don't you go first? Let me take.
I was gonna say I'll start it
out.
if you want because I'm not going off the one rankings.
Okay.
I'm making a super fight. He is 10 pounds lighter than Lineker, but they have competed in the same division in the past. Give me Demetrius Johnson.
Oh, wow.
I know he's got this planned match with Rod Tang where they're doing the split rules and whatever. He just lost to Adriano Martins for the 135-pound title over there. It's probably going to take him a couple wins to get back to that title shot. I think easily the funnest use of Demetrius Johnson right now, win or lose in the Rod Tang fight, is to ask him to move up a class and fight John Lineker, who is not that big. He was significantly smaller than Bibiano Fernandes, who is not even that big compared to some other guys in that division. So I'm sure Lineker would jump at it. To take out Bibiano and DJ in back-to-back fights would be legendary. That would change his entire legacy. I think that's a fight that gets a ton of eyeballs on ONE FC, even people who don't normally watch it because both of those names from the UFC. And I think that's where I'd try to go. I think that's a huge fight, fun fight. I'd try.
Okay. Omar, looking at the roster there, what do you see next? Who would you like to see a matchup with next?
So I'm going to go with that one as well because that does sound like a fantastic fight. And to be wholly honest, I don't know anybody in these rankings. Like, I might know the top guy of like maybe a few divisions here and there, but nah, son. I don't know none of these people to really make that kind of educated decision. But John Lineker versus Demetrius Johnson would be a straight up banger. And it would also be interesting to see kind of where they're at now that they don't have to weight cut the same way. Because to be honest, John Lineker has every reason to knock out Demetrius Johnson. But Demetrius Johnson's always had his speed. He's always had his technique to kind of prevail him through. So it's a very interesting fight, especially now.
It's a fight that I'm sure Lineker had in his mind for years in the UFC when he was a flyweight, thinking, sure. And he was close too. He was probably in his head, one more fight. I'm going to get DJ. I'm going to get to DJ. And he never got it. So I'm sure if someone said to him, hey, how do you feel about fighting Demetrius Johnson? He's probably like, fuck yeah, I'll fight Demetrius Johnson. And you tell
Yeah.
Johnson you can fight for a title, even though you just lost for a different title. You know, it's bigger. But again, like I said, Lineker's not that big. I feel like DJ jumps at that too.
In the UFC, Demetrius Johnson never seemed to be pretty hot on making super fights or going up in weight. He always was like, I've defended the flyweight title a bajillion times, and I'm just going to keep doing that.
Well, to be fair,
but he was the champ.
The other
he got turned back.
The other reason why was he also felt like he wasn't going to get paid properly for a super fight. Like he was basically going to get paid the same that he was going to get paid regardless. The one thing about Demetrius Johnson is I'm pretty sure he was one of the few that didn't take pay-per-view points. He took more on the front end and didn't take a lot of pay-per-view points on the back end as part of like his contract. But he always made like a steady, like usually it was like 350 to show, 350 to win, I think, something like that. So he was constantly like, I mean, especially with his winning streak, he was constantly making money. But his pay-per-view numbers never really, unfortunately, did well. So it was probably a better investment for him to have done it the way that he did. But a super fight would have never made sense financially for him because he would have gotten paid exactly the same for essentially something with a lot more spectacle.
It's interesting.
Do we think Bibiano, I mean, I believe he's like 40 years old. And if anybody who doesn't know, Bibiano Fernandes, I don't think he's ever been in the UFC, but this guy is kind of a legend in the sport of MMA. He started fighting, I think, in 2004. He's fought for Dream. Did he fight for Pride? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think he did fight in Pride.
I know he fought for Dream.
I think his prime was too late.
He fought for Dream. Dream and One were his like big promotions.
Yeah,
Yes.
and there was a time where he was very teased to come to the UFC. I want to say it was Faber at the time that everyone was saying they wanted to see him matched up with, but it never went down.
Yeah.
So it looks like supposedly they had signed him in 2012 and had a bout against Roland Delorme for UFC 149, and then Fernandes pulled out because of an injury, and then he said that was bullshit. It was because of negotiations with the UFC, and then a contract was never signed. You know, I kind of believe that that's exactly what happened. To be honest, that doesn't surprise me in the least.
I kind of think he may step away just because he hadn't fought in 2 years. Obviously, he was still the champ, so unless he walked away as the champ, he kind of had to.
Yeah.
Off the loss, it wouldn't shock me if he's like, all right, you know what? I came back, juiced myself to the gills. It didn't work out. See you later.
Yeah, but again, for folks who don't know, do yourself a favor. One afternoon, go on YouTube and look up some old Bibiano Fernandes fights and finishes.
Oh, yeah. He's a beast.
Guy's legit, kind of a legend. Long time reigning one championship, bantamweight champion, I believe. So, yeah, cool. Congrats. Any other things you guys want to say about Lineker? Congrats to Lineker for being on the marquee this week in a co-main event in a non-UFC title fight. Pretty cool stuff.
Dude still got hands, man.
It's amazing how he always gets everyone to fight his fight. Like he gets everyone to be like, all right, fuck it. We'll brawl. Like it's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. I was telling Mark, like, if there was a real counter striker in there, like John Lineker would be asleep right now because there was like hardly any technique. There was a lot of winging in that fight. A lot.
That's kind of what.
But
Lineker
even the guys in the UFC,
100%.
like TJ only beat him by decision. Sandhagen, I think, was a split decision. Like no one really takes out John Lineker.
He's also really durable.
Yeah, I mean, he's solid. He looks solid. He looks like a very strong human being,
Instead
for
of
sure.
Hands of Stone, it should be Man of Stone. That's kind of his thing. All right, let's move on. Let's go right back into the UFC. This past weekend, UFC Fight Night, Santos versus Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev scored a unanimous decision victory over Thiago Santos, earning a 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47, earning himself the victory on the judges' scorecards. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What did you make of this fight, and what did you think of Ankalaev's performance?
I thought both of them were extremely underwhelming. I think I kind of expected it though from Santos, so I don't know if I'm really as upset or annoyed with Santos as I am with Ankalaev. I think this was
Expected
Ankalaev.
it from Santos?
I did. I mean, Santos has kind of been a little tentative in his last few fights. Hasn't really pulled the trigger. If you go back and you watch the fight, you'll see there's like, I mean, half the fight is literally Santos like jumping back at like feints, at every feint that's being thrown at him. Both of them seem to fight really timid and kind of afraid of the power from one another, which I get to a certain extent, but after a certain amount of time, it's like somebody's got to do something about something here, because it really was just kind of a staring game at certain points, maybe a pot shot here and there, but nothing was really getting done. Santos threw more leg kicks, I think, or more kicks, period, in this fight than I think he has in his last few fights combined. All in all, though, I mean, I expected more from Ankalaev. I think it was a big moment for him to kind of prove that he belongs in the top of the light heavyweight division, to kind of put people on notice in the light heavyweight division. He's been very dominant, I feel like, on his way up, and then all of a sudden you get to the one guy who's not really going to bring the fight to you like he used to, and you just kind of are okay with it and kind of pick your shots. And even with that, he still didn't even dominate the fight. He won the fight for sure, but it didn't really seem like a dominating performance. It just seemed like something he had to get done, I guess.
Mark, what was your take?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much that. It was underwhelming, to say the least. We got the new typical Thiago Santos, who sits back and is tentative, which is just insane, considering the guy used to charge at people like a friggin' buzzsaw and put them down. And then we get Magomed Ankalaev, who, for reasons that I can't understand, did not want to wrestle. When he finally did look for his wrestling late, I think it was the 4th round, he got a takedown with ease. And you're watching it like, man, if he had just gone to this any other times in this fight, we might already be out of here. We might not be watching this fight anymore. And for some reason, he kind of just coasted with the striking, never used what is an equally dangerous part of his game, and kind of stayed in this almost even game. I mean, he was winning it, but not in any way that was like, wow, Magomed Ankalaev, you know, he stayed away from what could have been the differentiator in the fight, and something that could have helped him get Santos out of there and make the statement that I think he was trying to make. But, you know, I don't know what that was about from him. I'm not sure if he was trying to prove something. I don't know if he wanted to show that he didn't need to use it and that he could beat a striker, but the guy is better than what he showed on Saturday night. And he almost kind of dimmed his star, I feel like, because of it. Like he's basically demanding a title shot now. And to me, there's no way you get a title shot after that performance.
That being said, let's go straight into this. Mark, I'll stay right with you. Who would you want to see matched up next for Ankalaev?
So, yeah, as I said, I know he wants the shot. He said it in the cage. He said it post-fight. He said over and over how much he deserves it. I don't see it. We already have Glover versus Prohaska, and we're supposed to be getting Jan versus Rakic. And if Rakic wins that fight, I don't see how Ankalaev gets a title shot before Rakic does, after he just beat Jan, the former champ. And even if Jan wins that fight, I'm still not even sure. Maybe they give Jan it right back. I'm not sure on that one. I guess it helps Ankalaev a little if Jan wins that fight, but he's certainly going to have to at least wait for that one to play out. So to me, he should be taking, I don't even know if that fight is official yet, by the way, Jan and Rakic. So to me, he should probably be taking another fight in the meantime, especially because this one didn't set the world on fire. So I don't think there's any more perfect option than Anthony Smith. Smith has been sitting and waiting for a big fight to show itself. He kind of was the guy that got left out with the bookings at the top of the division. And now this one has arrived. I think it's a perfect fight for both guys. I think whoever wins it, it will be a huge feather in their cap and a huge statement for their title contendership aspirations. And I think it's perfect.
Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have to agree. That's exactly my choice, would be Anthony Smith. I mean, everybody else kind of has something already set. So Rakic and Blachowicz are set for March 26th, and Yuri.
Oh, wow.
And,
really soon.
yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Yuri and Glover are May 7th. So other than Anthony Smith in that top of the division, you have Dominic Reyes. And if you ask me who should deserve a shot against a guy who's basically been on a 4-fight win streak, 4? At least 3. It's definitely going to be Ankalaev.
Oh, he's more than that. A lot more than that.
Yeah, in the UFC though, what is he at? Like
win
3,
streak,
4?
like 8.
Oh, really? I didn't even realize he's been in the UFC.
Because he lost his debut to Paul Craig, and then since then he's won. 8.
Right,
He's 8-1.
Right. He got caught at the end there. Yeah, so Anthony Smith is just the better option in my opinion. He's off of a few wins of his own. Dominic Reyes is coming off of multiple losses, so I don't really necessarily think he deserves a shot in that direction personally.
Yeah, I'll clarify one thing. I didn't realize that Blachowicz and Rakic fight was next week. I remember it got delayed, and for some reason I thought it got delayed much later than that. So I will say, if Rakic wins that fight, I'm still with Ankalaev Smith. If Blachowicz wins that fight and you don't necessarily want to give him an immediate rematch right away, then maybe Ankalaev has an argument he should be the one fighting Blachowicz. So I'll put that caveat in there.
Okay.
Oh no. You're right. It did get withdrawn from that event. It's scheduled for sometime in the future. They don't have it scheduled yet.
Ah, okay, that's what I thought.
But he did.
All right, so stick with it. Ankalaev Smith.
Omar, let me go over to you. What would you want to see next for Mr. Santos, Mr. Maheta?
I mean, I would like to see Thiago Santos figure his shit out, to be honest. There's something really like upsetting about the way his game has changed, and I mean, we could probably blame John Jones because it happened right after the John Jones fight. He literally was never the same after that fight.
He went after Jones.
No, he was great in the fight, but then he ruined both of his legs.
Yeah, I think the damage to his legs, and it could have also been a certain damage to his psyche as well.
Yeah.
Because he fights with a certain tentativeness that he didn't fight with before. Like he's wholly afraid of getting hit at this point, and I don't know if that came from the Jones fight or came from something else, but it's definitely messing with his mojo there. If I had to go with a fight at this point, just based off of the way the rankings are shaped out right now, I would probably have Santos go against Dominic Reyes.
Ooh,
probably for the same reasons I didn't want him to go against Ankalaev personally. A lot of these guys are coming off multiple losses. Santos did have a win against Johnny Walker, but like, who cares if you watch that fight? And so it seems like this is hopefully the right fight for one of these guys to get on the right track, whether it's Dominic Reyes, who God needs a win. Like, the boy was on the rise so hard and then fought John Jones and has like been going down the shithole ever since.
Okay.
So hopefully one of these guys can break the John Jones curse and get their careers on the right track.
Mark, any names you would throw out there for Santos to go up against next?
It's exactly where I was going. There's an argument to be made that you maybe take Santos a little further down the line, but to me, you got two big names sitting right there. They both look bad lately. You want one of them to get back on track and be interesting in the division. Put them together, let someone hopefully look good and go from there.
In one sense, I almost said that I would want Reyes to go up against Ankalaev because that would be the fight that we wish Santos would have brought to Ankalaev, because Reyes still brings it. He happened to run into Yuri Prohaska in his last bout.
Fair.
Yeah. Santos doesn't bring it enough. Reyes brings it a bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, Reyes' losses, to be fair, are Bones, which was a controversial loss,
right,
and then Blachowicz and Prohaska. So, like, you can't lose to better guys than that in the light heavyweight division. So, we will see probably in his next one. If he loses to another guy who is lower level, then it's time for some more concern.
Yeah.
I think my concern with Reyes specifically is how the performances have looked. Like, Blachowicz like busted him up completely. Like his whole shit was gone after that fight. Broke his nose. Like, he took a lot of damage in a short amount of time in that fight. And it was kind of the same with Yuri. It was kind of the same level of exposure when it came to him getting knocked out, getting hit hard, getting hit in a dangerous spot, and kind of going down as a result of it. It's, when you look at the John Jones fight, I wouldn't tell you that the next two fights that he fights, regardless of who they were, he was going to get knocked out. You would think it would be competitive. You think there'd be some sort of back and forth or whatever, but he's been getting slept left and right. So, yeah, I hope so.
Crazy changes. That we're talking about two guys who have looked so bad lately, and both of them, certain people felt like won their fight against John Jones, and now look where they are. Not that many fights later. Pretty crazy.
The John Jones curse.
Both a breath from being the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Wild.
Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes, sir.
All right. Going down this card, Song Yadong, round 1 knockout over Magic Marlon Moraes. extinguishing the magic. The end came at 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the first round. Man, oh man, Song Yadong came out like a buzzsaw. My man was cracking from the opening bell and eventually found that chin of Marlon Moraes. Omar, let me start with you. What was your reaction as you watched this first round unfold?
Yeah, I think if I had to pick something to really criticize in that fight from Marlon's standpoint, it's his guard. His guard, for whatever reason, is the worst. He keeps his hands up, but he might as well keep him down because everything that was thrown went right through his guard, whether it was down the middle, around it, whatever the case is. Maybe that wasn't Marlon's fault. Maybe we could blame that on the accuracy of Yadong, but it just seems like it happens more to Marlon than a lot of other people, especially lately. But it was a fantastic performance from Yadong because he was accurate and he was very powerful. He kept the center of the octagon, I think, for a majority of the time that the fight was standing up. And that uppercut was disgusting. It hit him right on the bottom part of the jaw. The jaw like moved before the whole head ended up going with it. And Marlon was on his butt, had no idea where he was for that moment. And I thought it was a fantastic call from the referee. Another referee probably would have let Marlon get hit another couple times to go out completely, but fantastic call from the referee.
Absolutely. Mark, usually it's Marlon Moraes who's in there hunting his opponent with the one who has the scary power, especially with that signature high kick. But this time it was Song Yadong whose power just completely overwhelmed his opponent. What was your reaction? What were you thinking as that first round was unfolding?
Yeah, my belief in Marlon Moraes still being Marlon Moraes was definitely misplaced. I am now comfortable saying that guy is gone. He got dusted by Song Yadong, and he got dusted quick. As Omar said, he seems to just be struggling with not getting hit cleanly dead in his face, which is an odd and troubling sign. And not to take anything away from Yadong, obviously it's a huge win for him, but he's a guy who drew with Cody Stamann a couple of years ago in a fight most people thought he lost. So that's not even the level that like a typical Marlon Moraes should be losing to, but here we are and it sucks. So I feel like it's safe to say that he is not going to be returning to the levels of Magic Moraes that we knew. But to focus on Yadong, he looked absolutely fantastic. He's so young that it seems like, so this is the flip side of me saying drew with Stamann 2 years ago. He's so young that it seems like he is growing by leaps and bounds every time he steps into the octagon. So definitely a better fighter now than then. He is fine-tuning his game. He's getting more comfortable in there. He's landing his power with significantly more precision than he ever has before. And at 24 years old, this guy may have a hell of a future in this division. And that is a hell of a way to break into the top 10 because that was a beautiful knockout.
Yeah.
Man, oh man, was it ever. Whew. I'm going to stay right with you, Mark. Again, looking at the rankings at bantamweight, where would you want to see Song Yadong go next in terms of his next opponent?
So I got one that I love. He's probably wanting more than this, I'm guessing, from his call out of Dominic Cruz. But for me, I'm going Sean O'Malley.
Oh, baby. Oh, man.
I think that's an absolute banger. And I'm here to settle who the true young gun contender of the bantamweight division is. I think it's knockout one way or the other, probably. I mean, maybe they just kill each other for 15 minutes. I don't know. But either way, I would love to see it.
Oh, man. As good as O'Malley is, at the top of bantamweight, I think of O'Malley against certain guys, and Song Yadong is one of them where I'm like, man, is O'Malley like strong enough and durable enough?
I agree, but we're there. Like it's time to put him in with someone.
Although hasn't he said like recently that he's like content to kind of face not super highly ranked guys until
we're past that. He got his new contract. We're good. We've got a green light.
And he beat a ranked fighter. It's like what we can't go backwards now.
Yeah, he's getting the contract he wanted. He's good to fight top 10 guys at this point. Throw him in there, deep end. Let's go.
Omar, aside from Sean O'Malley, are there any other names at the top of the bantamweight division where you would want to see Song go next?
So post-fight, like Mark alluded to, he did call out Dominic Cruz, and I got to be honest, I kind of love that fight. That fight is super interesting. I mean, it's like Cruz's bread and butter to a certain extent, right? You've got a young kid, especially a kid. He's very reminiscent of Cody Garbrandt in the sense that he moves very well. He's a very heavy-handed guy. They are not the same fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but stylistically, Cruz kind of has his ways and his tools to kind of get around those threats. I don't think that Song Yadong moves as well as Cody Garbrandt personally, but at the same time, he presents very similar issues that Garbrandt faced when he or that Garbrandt presented when he faced Dominic Cruz. So I think it'd be very interesting to see, and it's always interesting to see where Cruz is because Cruz ain't getting any younger, and yet the man is still top 10 in the division. It's interesting to see how far he can go if he can really make another title run at this point.
Staying with you, Omar, what do you think is next for Marlon Moraes? Do you think did he hang it up or did he hint at it?
He took the gloves off, but he didn't say anything, not even in the post-fight presser, nothing.
Did he put him in the middle of the ring?
Yes.
Oh, that's balls.
That's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that like having lost every fight for the last 5 years has been great. I think regardless of how the scorecards were called for that Aldo fight, I think he knows, and no one will ever give him credit for that win because he didn't win. So I think he spent a lot of time, a lot of effort. He flew to Thailand. I think there was a lot of investment that went into this last fight, this last training camp. Dude's got kids. Dude's got a family. It just the juice just might not be worth the squeeze for him anymore. I think he's also the type of fighter that I would imagine is probably looking for a belt. And just with this many losses on his record, he's not going forward. He's going back even faster than he was going forward at this point. So it just may not be worth it anymore, just as a whole picture. So I wouldn't be surprised to not see him back. Let's play around for a second. If he was back, I still think he's top 15. I think he's probably borderline top 15 at this point, 14, 15, something along those lines. So I'd probably stick him in there with somebody like that. If you happen to give Song Yadong Dominic Cruz, then I would like to see Sean O'Malley against Marlon Moraes.
Oh, okay.
That to me is a gatekeeper fight as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
And if Marlon can't beat an up and comer, regardless of the fact that Sean O'Malley has all this hype and all this other stuff, at the end of the day, Sean O'Malley doesn't have those like quality wins to really like talk up that he deserves to be up there. But if he can sleep Marlon Moraes, even regardless of a downswing, it's a feather on the cap that he can't get anywhere else.
Has Moraes fought Frankie?
No, they're like training partners. They're not going to fight.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah, because he came out of the pizza place gym. I forget what that place is called.
Yeah, Mark Henry's gym.
Thank you. Mark
That's
Henry's
right.
Yeah.
Because that would be a fun fight.
I agree. It will be. I had the same thought, and then I was like, nope, can't do that one. But yeah, the O'Malley idea is the idea that I threw out there after O'Malley won his last fight. I said I wanted to see him fight Moraes. Now that Moraes lost again, another knockout to a young guy, I'm not sure I want to throw him out in there with another knockout artist. I kind of think I'd like to move him down the line a little further. And if this is it for him, totally fine by me. Totally respect it. If he feels like he just made this Thailand move and he's invested all this work and maybe it just didn't pay off right away in this fight and he's got to try one more, see what happens, fine. But I'm moving him down the line. Speaking of O'Malley, I think I would give him like a Rowley and Paiva, the guy that O'Malley just beat. Someone like that who's tough, but he's not necessarily like the greatest fighter in the bantamweight division. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Someone like that. And if he loses that one, I think it's probably time for the conversation. If he wins it, it's like, okay, we'll book you one more. We'll see what happens from there. But I kind of think that's where we're at. We got to go down the line a little bit.
Okay. Let's move on. Further down the line of this UFC Fight Night card. Excuse me. We're not quite at the lightning round yet, boys, but let's pick up the pace a little bit because we still have a lot of ground to cover. Sodiq Yusuff, unanimous decision victory over Bruce Leroy Caceres. He scored 30-27, 30-27, 29-28 on the scorecards. Mark, let me throw it to you first. What was your reaction over Sodiq getting this win over Bruce Leroy?
He looked good. The fight played out pretty much the way that we called it. Sodiq is so poised. He lands clean. He lands with power. He didn't give Caceres the chances he needed to get his game going. First round was a little dicey in there. It was close. Definitely could have gone Caceres' way. I wasn't sure, but Sodiq settled in. He got rolling. He got his game going. It was evident that he was the better fighter. And Caceres, at least for me, he hit a ceiling that I knew all along was there for him. He's not a top 15 caliber guy. As good as he is, the division is just too deep, and I thought he'd get turned back here, and he did. Yusuff is a contender.
Omar, what's your take over Yusuff getting it done over Caceres?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the performance kind of spoke for itself. He was very strong in there. He was kind of pushing Caceres back, even with punches that were being blocked. He had control, I want to say, for a majority of that fight. Sodiq just definitely looked more like he belonged in there with the top of the division than what Alex looks like, which is unfortunate. I've always been a big Alex Caceres fan since the very beginning, since Tough, which I think we all look back and realize how fucking long ago that was now, which it doesn't feel that long ago, but
he must
it
have been
definitely
a
is.
baby when he was on Tough.
Yeah. So I it is tough to kind of acknowledge that he does seem to be reaching a certain ceiling. Is it possible for him to break that? Anything is. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be happening anytime soon. Sodiq Yusuff has definitely been a name to look out for, and I think we should be seeing some more heavy or more high-profile fights, I think, at this point for him.
Okay. In the light heavyweight division, Khalil, Rountree. Round 2, TKO over Karl, Roberson. My boy, Khalil Rountree, one of my favorite fighters on the entire roster. The end came at 25 seconds of round number 2. Omar, let me throw it to you first. Let's discuss this fight, this finish from Rountree.
I'm telling you, man, Muay Thai Rountree is a fucking problem. He is a problem. I don't think I've ever seen somebody pick up Muay Thai so fast in my entire life. Like never. Like there's literally a fight that you can watch before he went to Thailand, and the fight he went to after he went to Thailand. They are two completely different people. It is one of the most extreme changes in style I think I've ever seen, and it works for him so well. And kicking a downed opponent in MMA now, like we're not talking Pride where you could goalie kick somebody if you really wanted to.
Soccer kick to the head. Soccer
kicks, angry kicks, jumping stomp kicks. I mean, Shogun Rua made a career out of stomping people out. That was Shogun Rua's bread and butter. We don't live in that world anymore. So for Khalil to have the actual accuracy and the confidence to know that he wasn't going to kick this guy's head straight clean off and lose that fight was, dude, you saw the power in that fight. He lifted him from the ground while he was sitting.
Yep. That kick moved him.
Yeah. Yep. It lifted his entire ass off the ground. His whole body moved. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I thought it was a leg kick. I thought he kicked him on the inside leg and just lifted his whole body, but he kicked him right in the liver, and it just I don't even blame him. I would have stayed on the ground too. I wouldn't have moved.
He got up, man.
He did get up, and then he got right back down.
Roberson is a tough motherfucker, yes. But Khalil's something different right now, and this might be the best time for him to be part of this light heavyweight division right now, because the man's striking is awesome. I hope he can put the rest of it together to really keep climbing the ranks, because the kid is fun, man.
Have we unlocked a new mythical fighter in the pantheon of fighters? There's TRT Vitor, Sea Level Kane, and a few others at this point. Is Muay Thai Khalil? Is this a new one?
I hope it's gonna be. What's crazy is that he lost his first fight after being Muay Thai Khalil. He lost to Marcin Prachnio. It was like not even that good.
That was his first Muay Thai.
But he had to work it out, I guess. And now he's won.
Looked great though until he didn't.
Huh?
He looked great until he didn't.
Agree. He did. But yeah, Khalil has always been a guy who kind of beats guys who you're like, wow, like Khalil just beat that big name, and then he loses to someone where you're like, what? Like this is what we're doing. So he's always kind of been like that. I hope we have found the consistency, because that Khalil Rountree, ladies and gentlemen, oh baby, that is a frightening man. I love to see him fulfilling his potential. I feel like we've all kind of always seen it. We've always been like Khalil guys. It's happening. He, like I said, that's 2 in a row. He looks like a murderer in both of them. The body kick, like we said, was absolutely nasty. And maybe the Khalil run is finally happening. He literally feels like a weapon right now.
Yeah.
And I would like to see him kind of get a jump. I would love to see him in there with Dustin Jacoby potentially in a striker's delight of kickboxer versus Muay Thai. Jacoby's got to be right at the edge of the rankings at this point. I'm not sure if he actually jumped into them with his last win, but they're right there. Or I would even throw Khalil in there with Ryan Spann, who needs a fight. I feel like that'd be a fun one too.
Yeah. Omar, let me throw it right back to you. Is there any other names other than those that he mentioned that you would want to see Khalil match up with next?
Just pointed out real quick, Justin Jacoby's technically not hit the top 15 as of yet.
I guarantee he's like 16. He's got to be right there.
Yeah, the other ranking website has him at 17.
Okay, there you go.
Ryan Spann was my choice originally. That just kind of seems to be like a fight that would be interesting. But another fight that I think would work, especially because I'm kind of over him a little bit, at least at his current form, is Johnny Walker. I think him against Johnny Walker would be a very fun fight to sell, number one. An easy fight to sell. And at the same time, like, Johnny Walker beat Ryan Spann. So, like, if you want to know if he can beat Ryan Spann, then, beat Johnny Walker. We could just 2 birds with 1 stone that. And at the same time, we can find out what the hell's going on with Johnny Walker, because that boy still doesn't know what he's doing at all. So it's the fight to find out if people know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Anything you guys want to say about Roberson in terms of where he goes next? A word, a name?
Nah.
Okay.
Keep it moving. We got enough to talk about.
Keep it moving.
We'll match up the winners at this point.
Last week it was Cowboy. This week it's Roberson.
That's right. And another cracker, Drew Dober, round 1 TKO over the young gun Terrance McKinney. The end came at 3 minutes and 17 seconds of the very first round. Omar, let me start with you this time. What was your reaction of the very durable Drew Dober weathering the storm and getting it done over Terrance McKinney?
So I definitely watched this fight at Buffalo Wild Wings. For no other reason other than the wife and I wanted to go have some wings, and we said, hey, it's UFC night, why not? So we went. This fight was on. I was screaming the whole time. Made an absolute ass out of myself. Drew Dober is probably one of the toughest human beings around. Terrance McKinney did exactly what we all thought he was going to do, which was blitz him, be very accurate with all of his strikes, most of his strikes anyway, and really put a beating on Drew Dober, and he did exactly that. What I don't know if a lot of us were expecting was that Drew Dober would eat literally everything and then come back in the same round to beat the shit out of Terrance McKinney. McKinney literally blew his whole wad after like maybe 3 minutes or so. And the rest of the fight, Drew Dober just took over, hit him a few times. You could see McKinney had no gas left and just wailed on him until the referee ended it. I was telling you guys earlier that I'm glad that something like this happens to Terrance McKinney now, because he's been on such a run lately, knocking people out so early, submitting people out so early, not really having to go through a war, going through a battle of attrition. And I'm just glad it happened now early in his career, where he'll still be relevant. He'll still be somebody people want to watch, but it didn't cost him anything. It didn't cost him a number 1 contender shot. It didn't cost him a title shot. It didn't cost him a top 15 shot necessarily. It was something that was good for him to learn this early on in his career, that he might need to take those moments and identify where the opportunities are for him to blitz and when he might need to pull back a little bit, because people from this point on are probably going to get a hell of a lot more tough and durable than Drew Dober was. And Drew Dober is nobody to laugh at when it comes to those characteristics. So definitely something I'm glad he learned now. Hopefully he does learn it. He does take away those lessons from that fight, and we see him back in there better than ever.
Mark?
Good Lord, Drew Dober is a tough man. He endured about 2-3 minutes of hell to start that fight. It's tough to think of anyone who starts as quick and as hot as Terrance McKinney does. It's wild. And as Omar said, he may have to adjust it. It's hard to tell him that because it worked for him 5 times in a row. So I'm sure he was going to keep doing it until it didn't. We'll see what happens here. But I mean, yeah, that was a crazy 2-3 minutes Dober went through, but he weathered it. He has always been nothing if not tough. And as soon as the pace dropped just a little bit, Dober pounced right away. He jumped all over him. He did not let him off the hook. A gutty win for Drew Dober and a much needed one to maintain his standing in the lightweight division.
I was a little surprised. I think only halfway through the round, Dober survives. And I'm like, oh, my God, Kenny's gassed.
Yeah.
He looked so sloppy all of a sudden. And he was kind of avoiding some of Dober's heavier shots. And I was like, gee, he's got to be careful, man. But, oh, my God, he's gassed. And then he got cracked a few times. Yep. Dober pounced and he put him out. Look, at lightweight, as good as Terrance McKinney is in those first 2 minutes, you got to come with more cardio, especially in the lightweight division, in the lighter divisions. So many of the top guys have stellar cardio. It just has to be there for McKinney. I think he's got to add that.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's a cardio issue. I think it's the way he used the cardio.
It's a pacing issue. Yeah, agree.
It is a pacing issue, I think, is really what it is. I don't think you can find even Colby. Colby can't go 3 minutes full blast, right? He'll go 3 minutes almost at a jog pace, or maybe like as a brick, a heavy or slow run or whatever the hell. Yep. But he's not sprinting for 3.5, 4 minutes. You can't do it.
You got to understand letting your body reset.
Yeah,
sure.
McKinney, go back and watch it. McKinney was doing a lot of inefficient movements towards the end of that sequence.
I hear you.
The beginning of it was very much what he does and what we all expected him to do and what we all wanted to watch him do in the first place. But after a certain point, you could see Drew Dober wasn't going away. It just wasn't happening. There had to be a moment there for McKinney where he goes, all right, I need to take a minute because the kid's not going anywhere. But that never happened until the tides changed and he was on the bottom getting punched.
Yeah.
So that's I think what needs to change.
Let's stick with the winner here, Drew Dober. Omar, give me a name at lightweight now that you would want to see Dober match up with next.
Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting little fights that are in this little area here. A lot of people that are coming off a loss, although they'd be some fun fights, to be honest. I don't want to move him up too much because he did beat somebody not only who was lower ranked than him, but also came off of a short notice replacement for him as well. So if I had to go with somebody, I would probably say Joel Alvarez probably would be pretty fun. Or even Damir Ismagulov would also be kind of a good time. Okay. Drew Dober does well against some grapplers here and there. It kind of depends on how good they grapple in the end, but I'm always here to see Drew Dober fight for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Mark, what about you? Any names you want to throw out?
Yeah, he asked for Bobby Green, which would be a great fight. Granted, I still do want Bobby to get someone ranked higher than that. So my take would actually be to have him be waiting for Ilia Topuria. Topuria was a ranked featherweight, as we know. He's moving up to lightweight now. He's making his debut this weekend against Jai Herbert. He should win that fight. And I kind of feel like Dober is like that perfect guy to test, like, okay, do you stack up as a lightweight that's going to be a factor or not? And I think that'd be a great matchup for Topuria.
Nice. Okay, moving on. Alex Pereira in the middleweight division scored a unanimous decision victory over Bruno Silva. My goodness, he looked pretty good in this fight. Silva had his moments. Silva is not bad at fighting. Mark, let me start with you. What were your reactions to Pereira getting his second UFC win?
Yeah, Alex Pereira is good, man. He's very good. Bruno Silva, as we thought, was certainly live in there. He was no easy out, and he may even have won round one. Yeah. Bruno Silva's legit. He'll have other big fights, but Pereira was able to adjust. He is impressively calm in there. He doesn't really get put off his game. He's crazy accurate, and the power, even on small shots, is very noticeable how he was moving Silva back. He was certainly better in this one. He deserved the win. But I got to say, as good as he is, at least thus far, I don't see it in terms of him being able to beat Izzy. I know he did in kickboxing. I know that's obviously the big storyline here. They just don't look the same to me. Pereira is way more hittable. He can't counter the same way that Izzy can. He's not as fluid or as fast. I don't know. I don't see it as of yet. I know it's only been 2 fights, and I'm not saying he can't get higher, because I actually think he will get higher in these ranks, but I don't see a guy that can beat Izzy, but we will see.
Omar, what about you?
Yeah, Pereira has probably some of the best knees in that division. The timing off of his body knees when people are entering is like chef's kiss. Like it's really, really spectacular to watch. Like, people train forever to be able to throw knees with that kind of timing, that kind of precision, and that kind of effectiveness. It was really great to watch. That was one of my biggest takeaways from that fight entirely, was his knees are something to really, really watch out for going forward. His other striking is effective. It's great, but like Mark said, he's very hittable. The man stands in front of people. He's very old school Muay Thai, where like, we're about to throw down, I'm staying inside, we're going to be basically in clinch range, throw short hooks, elbows, you know what I mean, push you back, throw a kick. He's fighting Muay Thai in there with guys who will play to his game. Where I think he's going to run into issues are guys that are very strong wrestlers, guys that are very strong grapplers. And that's not to say the guy hasn't been training. He's got Glover in his corner. I can't imagine Glover's letting him get away with not being prepared for these types of events. But some of these fights and matchups seem to be tailor-made for Alex Pereira, which kind of tends to be the case when you got a guy that you're trying to build up, right? But at the same time, we need to see him against somebody with a little bit of adversity, somebody that it's not going to make him shine, at least on paper, right? He's got to go through something where it really proves that he deserves to be in that division. I also don't see the comparison between him and Izzy right now. That fight between him and Izzy was at this point like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. That's a lifetime when it comes to fighting. A lifetime. I really don't think people need to rely on that. I hope for their sake that both of them aren't relying on that fact whenever they potentially have to meet up. I am interested to see what Pereira does going forward, but I don't think – I know he's calling out – didn't he call out Jared Cannonier?
Yes.
Yeah. Just put down the shit that Costa apparently gave him and let's build appropriately, because that performance, while it was fun and this, that, and the other – you didn't dominate enough to be warranting these kind of call-outs. So.
Yes.
That being said, Mark, let me start with you. Anybody next in the light heavyweight division? I'm sorry, in the middleweight division that you want to see him match up with next?
Yeah, so Cannonier obviously is not happening. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Bruno Silva, like we said, he's good. We like him, but he wasn't even ranked. Let's maybe fight a ranked fighter here before we fight the guy who is going to be fighting for the title. So I actually have a few different ideas. I couldn't really pick one, so I'll throw them all out there. I'll throw them all out there quick. They're all kind of a larger step up than the next. The smaller step, which I'm totally fine with doing, is Brad Tavares. I think he could present some interesting challenges in terms of the MMA striking of Pereira, MMA-related movement of Pereira, and see if he still looks as good fighting a guy like Tavares. The bigger step than that would be to fight the winner of Kelvin Gastelum and Nasruddin Imavov, especially if it's Gastelum, just to get in there with someone who's truly battle-tested, who can wrestle a bit, and who is not going to go away. The last one, which is a bit more of the put the rocket on him booking, not the way he wanted with Cannonier, but Darren Till. I don't love it for Till. I wish he could return in like a more clearly winnable fight, but God, would it be fun to watch Till and Pereira throw strikes at each other.
Absolutely. Omar, any names you want to throw out there?
The Darren Till one would definitely be a fun fight, a fun stand-up fight. I don't think either one of them would really go for a takedown, but Darren Till's been working with Chimaev. You never know. He might suplex somebody on his way back. I think just based off of what I was saying, I personally want to see adversity. I don't know as a matchmaker if that's really what you're going to want for a guy who's on his way up. You might want to see him keep winning so you can keep selling him. But personally, I want to see if he can take on a guy whose skill set rivals his in terms of striker versus grappler. And while the man has been on a bit of a decline, I still think Chris Weidman is still a tough out for anybody. It's a big name for Pereira, especially if he's able to get that win. I think it'd be a great win for Weidman if he ends up coming back, beating a guy who's got a lot of hype behind him, especially having a win in whatever, kickboxing from the champion. That's something that he can kind of take away from that as well. I think that'd be a great fight to see exactly where both of them are at.
I love that pick as maybe being the last, in my opinion, what might be the last fight he gets if he wins, and if he wins again impressively, of an unranked opponent before they try to crack him into the top 15, because Izzy's not a spring chicken anymore. Pereira's not a spring chicken anymore. So if they want to try to squeeze as much juice out of that promotional material of Pereira's knockout victory over Adesanya many years ago, then they do kind of have to get a move on it. Maybe they're not even concerned about it at all. I think they might be. Why else would he be here?
Yeah, I mean, Adesanya has basically beaten almost everybody in the top 10 at some point.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Yeah, after Cannonier, it's kind of like he's waiting on Strickland to see if Strickland gets there, and otherwise he's almost wiped it.
Yeah.
But to be honest, guys, I would probably pick Pereira over anybody from the top 15 all the way up to the top 8, 15 through 8. I'd pick him over Weidman. I'd pick him over Brad Tavares. I'd pick him over Kelvin. I'd pick him over Uriah Hall. I'd pick him over Darren Till. When I get to Hermanson, and Hermanson's pretty elite grappling, now I'm kind of like, okay, this will be a real test.
I don't know if I pick him over Gastelum
Really?
that easily anyway. No. Gastelum's a beast, man. Gastelum is durable, and Gastelum's wrestling against somebody who may not be built to wrestle is not bad. Weidman sunned him because of his size. But other than that, it's not like Kelvin Gastelum gets like beat on the ground like that.
I also love Andre Muniz, who you skipped
Yeah.
over. I'm not entirely sure yet how good he is, but like if he waited in and ate a shot and grabbed a hold and then tapped Pereira like 30 seconds later, I would be like, well, yeah, that's what he does. Like is he booked? Because I'm really interested to see him again. Oh, I think he is. Uriah Hall.
He's booked against Uriah Hall. April
yes.
16th.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one. I like him.
Okay, let's move on. The night is young. Back over to one championship. Thanh Le, round one. Yes, this was the main event from one championship. Lights out from this past weekend. Thanh Le, round one knockout over Garry Tonon. Garry Tonon of jiu-jitsu fame has been making a go of it in MMA. Garry Tonon trying to do his thing. He kind of pulled guard, so to speak. Went for a leg. It seemed like he was getting a leg lock, almost locked in there, and Thanh Le just rained down hammer fists, and the lights went out. That now has concluded the number of times I'm gonna allude to lights out from one championship. Omar, let me go to you first. What was your take and reaction as you were watching that unfold?
Yeah, so this is one of the classic ways that strikers versus grapplers end. Grapplers rely too much on grappling, don't protect their face, and the faces get bounced off the canvas. Where I think real credit needs to go to is Thanh Le's ability now to seemingly not get fully caught in these submissions and have some submission defense, because I think that was his biggest vulnerability in his past fights, especially his past losses specifically. But as it turns out, and I don't think we've found this out until either the night of the fight or like the day after the fight, something like this. But he trains apparently with Ryan Hall, which, I guess if you were listening to somebody shit on Ryan Hall because Ryan Hall supposedly shit on Garry Tonon for losing, that might have gotten a little blown out of context as it was. But whoever Garry Tonon has been training with basically is disparaging Ryan Hall's credentials, saying he ain't that good. He hasn't beaten anybody. The matches and the trials that he's won are all bullshit. Anybody who actually sees him knows he doesn't have any really good technique. So a lot of jawing back and forth, but it seems like Ryan Hall did something right, because Thanh Le was able to stop that ankle lock, and he was able to just pound his face right into submission. So good for him, man. It's a great performance.
Mark, what's your take on watching him get it done?
Yeah, I would certainly pick Garry Tonon over Ryan Hall in a jiu-jitsu match, but I'm not sure about disparaging Ryan Hall's jiu-jitsu credentials. I think it's pretty obvious how skilled the man is in that department. As for the fight, this one was wild. Garry dove for the leg, exactly how I predicted that he would. And I assumed that Lee was in trouble. And then next thing you know, Garry Tonon is sleeping. I don't know if I give more credit to Lee for defending and landing big shots the way he was, or more criticism to Tonon for allowing himself to just get blasted like that. Like, it was almost like he wasn't even thinking he was in range to get hit like that, the way he was just kind of so open to it. But as Omar said, what I did not know before the fight is that Thanh Lee was training with Ryan Hall, and I literally cannot think of a better person to train with for Garry Tonon. So clearly that paid off big time for him, and Lee kind of legitimizes himself now as the champ over there with that win, I would say.
Yeah. By the way, it was Gordon Ryan who apparently took offense to, because apparently I think Gordon Ryan trains with Garry Tonon, yes, and Thanh Lee trains with Ryan Hall. So after the fight, Ryan Hall, I think, tweeted or said something like, and still, and like, if you know Ryan Hall, he's very crass. Like, he's not, yeah. I honestly think that even if it came off disrespectful, he wasn't even thinking about the person that much to even be disrespectful.
No, Ryan Hall gives no fucks.
Not sure how N still is disrespectful, but
I think he also went on to talk about like he was going to be releasing like grappling instruction videos on how to protect yourself from a leg lock and whatever else. But Garry Tonon, just a quick little snippet. He was like, Gordon Ryan said, he's a guy with no positional or submission game of any kind who did leg locks at a time and no one else did. His two biggest accomplishments in grappling are winning the trials and taking a bronze at ADCC by default because somebody got injured. He's literally never won a single tournament of note, and he's made a similar passive-aggressive post when Eddie lost the 2015 ADCC. He's declined grappling matches with every single person on our team. So,
I mean, those sound like facts, but
beef.
No, I don't really care.
Anything else you guys want to say about Thanh Lee's knockout over Garry Tonon?
Can I make a one super fight again?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Do it because I have no picks.
Yeah, their divisions are they're kind of shallow. They don't have huge names in them. The one that I think would be awesome for Thanh Lee. Obviously, he's made a big name for himself here, beating Garry Tonon. I know they're different weight classes, and in the terms that we're used to, Lee is a featherweight, and Eddie Alvarez is a lightweight who has never fought at featherweight. But the way things are over there in one with the weight cutting, Thanh fights at 155, and Eddie has to be fighting at 170. And he has been at a distinct size disadvantage in every single fight that he's had in one so far. It hasn't really worked out. They've been close, but things haven't quite gone his way. But he's a huge name. There are no other huge names in Thanh Lee's division. I'm sure one wants to make money off him. If there is any way at all to make that happen, maybe Eddie can't make the weight, make it a catchweight showcase. I feel like Thanh Lee is like almost kind of ready to be this new star, and you don't have a name to put him with. If you can make that one happen, even if it's a catchweight, I think that's a sick matchup. It lets you, either this Eddie signing pays off now, he gets a huge win. It wouldn't be for the belt, so Lee would still be your champ, or Lee becomes an even bigger star. I think that'd be super fun. Nice. I'm sure these maybe one of these super fights happens that I'm suggesting. I'm sure they're not all, but hey, I'm trying to make one more interesting over here.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to do them some favors. Let's keep going, guys. And let us switch gears now over to Bellator, who also had an event this past weekend. Adam Borics defeated Mads Burnell by unanimous decision, earning a 49-46, 50-45, and 49-46 on the judges' scorecards. Omar, let me start with you first. What was your reaction watching this fight, which was kind of a crazy fight between Borics and Burnell?
Yeah, kind of a crazy fight is probably an understatement. That fight was absolute madness. I mean, that fight was go, go, go from beginning to end. They beat the shit out of each other. I don't think there were any takedowns in that fight at all. People were getting dropped in that fight. I mean, it was hard for me to watch, enjoy, and score that fight at the very same time. It was just so crazy. I'm very much okay with the decision, especially because by the end of the fight, that was who I kind of felt had won the fight. I really couldn't tell you who won the rounds. Just again, it was just so wild. But I did feel like Borics ended up edging it over Burnell, especially when you look at their faces too. By the end of that fight, Burnell's face was all kinds of wrecked. So good decision.
Yeah,
legendary fight. Fantastic.
Mark, did you think this fight was legendary? What was your reaction as you watched it?
I mean, legendary is a big word, but that was an absolute scrap. Adam Boric looked the best I've ever seen him look. Mads Burnell was an absolute dog, which we knew going in, but goddamn, did he ever prove it. Boric was throwing fire at him, and Mads was just continually wading forward all fight long, literally keeping it at phone booth distance, ripping body shots. More than once, he landed a body shot that I was positive was going to drop Boric, and somehow it didn't. You could tell they were hurting him, but Boric was tough as hell also. These guys just put on a show. The difference in the fight to me was that Mads either would not or could not grapple. Maybe it was could not. Maybe it was just that Boric is such an athlete that Mads felt like he was struggling to find ways to get in or to control him, and that he had to try to win that fight in the phone booth brawl style instead. But man, he really didn't try that much. I would have at least liked to see him push for it a little bit more, because he did have such a grappling advantage. So I'm curious if he pushed for it more, what could have happened. Maybe he thought Boric would tire late and that he'd go to it then, since Mads just doesn't get tired. But to Boric's credit, he certainly didn't either. There was a period, I think it was maybe round 3, where I was like, oh, here we go. Like, Boric is getting tired. He's been nonstop this whole fight. He's going to start fading. And it lasted like a minute. And then I was like, oh no, like, he's actually fine. So his cardio was great. Like I said, that was the best Adam Boric we've seen so far. He is a hell of an athlete. He's so fast. He has a multifaceted bag of strikes. And if he's going to have a gas tank like that, he is going to be a challenge for anyone. Can he beat AJ McKee, who I'm expecting to turn back Pitbull again? I don't think so, simply because I'm that high on AJ McKee. But I'll be honest, I'm excited to see Boric try, whereas going into that fight, I really wasn't. So, yeah, he looked great.
Okay. Sticking with you, Mark, where do you think Boric goes from here?
So it sounds like he's getting the shot. It sounds like he's getting the winner of Boric and McKee and Pitbull. That seems like it's pretty set. As for Mads, who I feel I really like Mads. I would match him, I think, with Jeremy Kennedy. They're both like right there at the top of that division. They both recently beat Emmanuel Sanchez. They both recently got turned back by Adam Boric. I feel like that's like the who's the next best guy fight, and I would make that one.
Nice. Omar, any names you want to throw out real quick?
No, I think that covers it pretty well.
All right, let us now finally get to our lightning round. So guys, rather folks, for anybody who doesn't know, our lightning round is our non-game show in which I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their lightning takes. So, limit your takes to like a tweet, length of a tweet.
Yeah, I'm going for the true lightning this time.
Good enough? All right.
I hope so.
Sticking with Bellator from this past weekend, Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis, unanimous decision victory over Julius Anglickas. Mark, go first.
Anglickas was outclassed in there all the way around. To his credit, he did see the bell. It seemed like he was in trouble a few times, but Phil Davis looked great. He has looked great twice in a row, and he's showing that he's still right at the top of this division in Bellator.
Omar, Mr. Wonderful gets it done over in Bellator yet again. What's your take?
Phil Davis pulls off another Phil Davis. Takes him down, keeps him down, punches him when he needs to, and Anglickas didn't even have a chance.
Okay, back to the UFC, gentlemen, this past weekend, UFC Fight Night. Matthew Semine, the Jedi, Semmelsberger. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Gets
unanimous decision over AJ Fletcher. That one's a lot easier. Omar, go first.
That was a scrap, man. I really didn't expect the toughness out of AJ Fletcher. Fletcher, excuse me. And Semmelsberger has kind of been tested before and was tested again. But he came out on top. He definitely kept his composure and really gave AJ everything he could handle. Great fight.
JJ Aldrich, unanimous decision over.
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mark, go. Semmelsberger, Fletcher.
Too much lightning.
Too much lightning.
Too lightning. Yeah, Fletcher was dominant for like 8 minutes of that fight. And then Semmelsberger slipped out when they were on the ground, got on top, spent the last 2 minutes around 2 on top and stole the round. And I think he realized, like, man, I can really control this from the top, because he switched up the game plan in round 3, got back there and stole the decision in a fight that did not look like it was going his way.
Nice. Okay. Now, going on. Lightning, resume. JJ Aldrich, UD over Jillian Robertson. Mark, go first.
JJ Aldrich is an underrated fighter. I figured she would be ahead in that fight until it eventually hit the mat, at which point I thought she'd be in a lot of trouble, but she wasn't. She did just fine when it did. She got up multiple times. Her takedown D was better than ever, which maybe it looked like she was bigger than usual, so maybe the size had something to do with it, but a nice win for JJ Aldrich.
Omar Aldrich gets it done over Robertson. What's your take?
I feel like Aldridge did what Jillian Robertson wanted to do to her. I mean, she took her down multiple times, kept her down when she was down. And she just got stronger throughout the fight, too. Jillian Robertson just really didn't have an answer the more the fight went on.
Is it Javid, the Snow Leopard, Basharat, unanimous decision over Trevin Jones? Omar, go first.
Dude, who is this guy? This Basharat guy is fantastic. This man was throwing all kinds of wild shit in there. I don't even think Trevin Jones knew what was going on in there half the time. Sign me up. This guy looks very interesting. Sign me up.
Mark, your lightning take. Basharat gets it done over Trevin Jones.
Yeah, that was a hell of a debut. Basharat looked crazy slick. I'm surprised Jones didn't kind of turn to the wrestling more when it was evident that he was not doing so swift on the feet. But I thought Javid won every round, and like I said, hell of a debut.
Damon the Leech Jackson, round 2 submission over Camuela Kirk. Mark, go first.
Damon Jackson looks really good, man. This is a guy who I thought was like a journeyman type a few years back. He has become a really well-rounded and dangerous fighter. He can do it all, and that was a crazy slick transition for the arm triangle finish too.
Omar, Damon Jackson gets it done over Kirk. What's your take?
Great fight. The man freaks me out. The way he looks is very intimidating and from a very odd perspective. Not a typical tough guy kind of look, but when I look at him, there's something very serial killer about him.
Miranda Fear the Maverick, round 2 submission, getting back in the win column over Sabina Mazo. Omar, go first.
Let's go, Miranda Maverick. I was watching that fight. I was hoping she would pull it off, man. And she had a little extra gear in there for that fight. She was able to rip her way to the back and take the neck. I was just happy that Miranda Maverick finally got a win. We can keep going now.
That's right. Mark, what's your take, Maverick getting it done over Mazo?
A dominant and much-needed finish for Miranda Maverick, reminding people why she had all the buzz that she had. And we'll see if we can show it in her next one as she gets another step up where she's faltered before. So hopefully she can keep it going.
Okay. Cody, how do you say this one? Brundage, my bad. Round 1 sub over, I'm not going to try this one. Mark, just go first.
Dalsha Lungiambula.
Thank you.
Dalsha was looking like the far superior fighter, like maybe even getting close to a finish, and then inexplicably puts his head into a guillotine and the fight is over. Just stunning.
Yeah.
Omar, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, Brundage was getting lit up all kinds of different ways from one side of the cage to the other side of the cage. And yeah, I don't know why he went for a takedown of any kind. I wouldn't have gone for any kind of takedown. I would have been punching him, kicking him, teeping him, all kinds of shit, not for takedown. But he went for it and he paid for it. I guarantee we'll never see that from him again.
Guido Ninja Canetti, round 1 TKO over Chris Moutinho. Another standing TKO loss for poor Chris Moutinho. Omar, what's your take?
I mean, Canetti needed this, though. I mean, this would have been a really bad look if this, like, quote-unquote random kid basically just came in and just beat him in the UFC. So a much-needed win. I wish the man was just a little bit more, like, tight with his stuff, not so crazy. But it worked for him, man, and he really lit up Chris for that fight. I don't know if this is really where Chris should be at this point of his career. Maybe give him one more, but fantastic performance from Canetti. I hope there's some consistency there or retire.
Mark Ninja Canetti thumps Chris Moutinho. What's your take?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that was a bit of a quick trigger for a guy like Moutinho who has shown us what he can take. But props to Guido Canetti on getting a UFC win when I've thought for like 2 or 3 years that he was cut already.
I do want to make a point actually about that stoppage. That was a fantastic stoppage. And I will say why. If you go back and you watch that fight, basically right at the very end of that sequence, Moutinho isn't even looking anywhere. He's looking in like space, wherever his face just got punched to.
I didn't catch that.
There isn't any actual like defense. He's doing this like, monster thing that he does, but there's no actual conscious effort of where he's going, what he's looking at. Very, very good stoppage, to be honest.
Okay. Going on down. Oh, last one. Azamat, the professional, Murzakanov. Might have screwed that one up. Round 3 knockout over Tafan Chukwi. Got it done, boys. Omar, go first. I swear I reviewed these names, man.
This was another one that was going one way for a good majority of this fight, and Chukwi was very heavy-handed, very much lighting up Azamat for the good majority of that fight. And somewhere, I don't even know what happened, to be honest, but somewhere in the third round, I think the corner told him, you can turn it up, you can beat him, telling Chukwu you can do more, basically, to win this fight, really put some emphasis on it. And I don't know if that messed with him or what, or if he did too much or what, but Azamat came out with some crazy ass knee that just put the boy to sleep. It was beautifully timed. It was beautifully landed. It doesn't get any better than that, man. Good comeback win. Solid comeback win.
Mark, bring us home. Murzakanov finds a finish in the third round. Give us your take.
Yeah, as Omar said, Chukwi was lighting Murzakanov up for a good 2 rounds. And Murzakanov was a guy with some hype on his name debuting here. So it's possible that he may not be the prospect that people thought he was, but he certainly made it right by the end of round 3 and got himself a nasty finish. So we will see.
All right, boys, that does it for this week's lightning round. Thank you for those lightning takes. And now let's put a bow on UFC Fight Night Santos versus Ankalaev by finding out who has risen and who has fallen in our very own ranking system, the Priaulx Rankings. Mark, take it away.
All right, we will start from the top of the card as we've been doing lately and work our way down. Main event, you have Magomed Ankalaev, moves from my number 7 to number 4 light heavyweight. Obviously not a huge jump numbers-wise, but significance-wise, it is. I debated if he should move past Rakic, but ultimately decided that Ankalaev was finished in his loss. As much as he dominated the fight, he was finished, whereas Rakic's only loss was a highly debatable decision to Ozdemir. So I kept Rakic as my 3, slid Ankalaev into number 4. Next one, Song Yadong moves from number 18 to number 11 in my bantamweight rankings.
Let's go.
Big jump. There is some MMA math at work here where Yadong lost to Kyler Phillips, who lost to Raulian Paiva, who lost to Sean O'Malley. So you could argue that whole little trio should be moved up. But I resisted the MMA math urge, and I moved Yadong up simply off the back of this performance to number 11. Next, Alex Pereira makes a huge jump from number 51 to number 23 at middleweight, and I'm sure he is not finished with his move up. Obviously, a big leap in quality of opponent, which allowed him to make a huge jump here. Next one, Javid Basharat debuts, jumps into my rankings at number 20 in the bantamweight rankings.
Holy moly.
Wow.
A big number to debut at. I've always thought Trevin Jones' win over Timur Valiev might have been a little fluky and that he shouldn't be ranked as high as I have him, but it happened. And now Trevin Jones just lost to Basharat, so that's where I have him. We will see going forward, but he really did look great. Next one, Damon Jackson goes from number 36 to number 24 in my featherweight rankings. As I said, this guy just keeps working his way up. He looks great. He was 0-1-1-1 in his original UFC tenure. A loss, a draw, and a no contest. No wins. Left, went to the regional scene, came back, and has now won 3 out of 4 and really looks good. Last one, riser, is Cody Brundage, moving from number 63 to 51 in my middleweight rankings. Gets his first UFC win, so moves up simply because of that. The faller, I debated Marlon Moraes being on this list. In the end, I didn't move him so far down. I think I moved him down 2 spots. I just didn't feel like he was ready to jump that far yet, which Omar actually agreed with earlier. So my only faller is Karl Roberson from number 20 to number 28 in my light heavyweight rankings. When he moved up to light heavyweight, I inserted him at number 20 just on the back of some of the wins he has on his resume. I felt like it was a little high, and I feel like he's in a more accurate place now, actually coming off of that loss to Khalil Rountree, so he falls to number 28. Okay. And that is all.
Thank you, sir. Let us move right along with this program, boys. And let's jump into our next segment, Inside the MMA Sphere. Omar, what is going on in the headlines?
All right. So we'll jump right into it. Kevin Holland out here being a superhero again. If you don't remember, he did the same thing back in October of last year, where I think he stopped I don't know if it was his carjacker or just a carjacker, but stopped somebody from doing some dumb shit. And apparently this time around, he was in a restaurant in Houston, apparently just hanging out with some friends and family and whatever else. Heard a bang, thought it was, his initial thought was it's a champagne bottle that went off. Turns around, sees people running, glass breaking, and kind of figures out what's going on. He's like, that's a gunshot. So as it turns out, he was able to foil the plan with some other folks who actually intervened before he did. He was not technically the first person to kind of get in the mix. But he did end up grabbing the gun or grabbing the wrist of the guy that had the gun in his hand. He like started beating on the dude's wrist until he let go of the gun, and then choked him out and stayed on top of him. Once he got him back in consciousness, was basically on top of him like, if you move, I'm gonna hit you. It's gonna hurt. So just stay right there. And guy was like, yes, sir.
Good for him, man.
Yeah, cops came. They both flipped him over, handcuffed him. Nobody was injured. I will not harp on this point too much, but I think it really goes to show that not everybody, even in those sub situations, need to be shot. You just need to be trained properly. That's all I'm going to say. Ila Topuria and Paddy the Baddy done got into it at a hotel. So this happens basically the way fight weeks basically work is they check in on Tuesdays. Usually there's media on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. There's a press conference usually on Thursdays. The weigh-ins are on Fridays, and then Saturday we get to go. So Tuesdays generally are the days where most people will check in to wherever the location is, and they go into the hotels. They do some pre-stuff, get food, and whatever else. At one of these hotels, Topuria looks like he supposedly got out of an elevator, started staring down Paddy the Baddy. Baddy was like, what's good? And everything kind of kicked off. As the story goes, the video was very quick, very, very, short as it was. But Paddy did end up throwing some hand sanitizer at Topuria's head and is now dubbed him.
Hand sanitizer.
Yes, it has now dubbed him Mr. Hand Sanitizer, as one does. And Topuria swears that he landed a right hand on Paddy's face. Paddy
it sure doesn't look like it.
It does. It looks like there's an entire island between them.
Literally, it looks like there's 2 feet between the fist and the face.
Either Topuria is my height or shorter, and I can promise you I can't punch across an island. So I'm gonna go with bullshit on that one. Yeah. But I could see, they're trying to jaw at each other. It is what it is. The origin of the beef, just to go through it really quickly, actually stems from some pretty serious shit. Paddy basically tweeted at one point, I believe it looks like April of last year. And I don't remember even in regards to what this was about, but he did.
It was when he was debuting in the UFC, they hadn't announced who he was fighting yet. And Guram Kutateladze, who's from Georgia, tweeted that he wanted to fight Paddy. They ended up going back and forth. And then Paddy said what you're about to say.
Got it. Okay, so he must have responded to that gentleman then and said, lad, how stupid are these Georgians, man? No wonder the Russians terrorize their lives. Ooh. A little bit of context, which I'll just read Ila Topuria's responses because he gives it to you. Do you think that's funny? In an attack by Russia against us, many innocent people lost their lives, including children. The one who supports terrorism and racism is one of them. This tweet will haunt you for the rest of your life. And apparently all that went down, I believe, 2014, if I'm getting the year right, when that incursion happened or so. It was relatively recent. This is not like long ass history ago. This like happened a few years ago. So, when we kind of talked about it amongst ourselves, we were like, because Paddy did backtrack. He said something to sort of try to alleviate the situation and said he was misunderstood. He didn't know the whole story, this, that, and the other. You knew enough to make it a point, to try to make it a jab in a contest of words. You knew enough that it was going to do something, so you should have known enough not to say the shit in the first place. A lot of other things I feel like people can throw out of there. I don't understand why they always go for shit like this. But just not a great look. And now that they're both at 155, that very well might be some shit we might see go down sooner rather than later at this point. Last little fun story.
Step up for Patty.
For sure. It definitely would be. It definitely would be. And to be fair, if we had to pick right now, I'd be picking Topuria to win that fight.
Oh, yeah.
Just for the record.
So good.
For the record. Last little fun story we have on the list. Michael Bisping done almost got killed by Chimaev and Darren Till. They almost killed the man. The Count. Can you believe this? Basically what happens is Michael Bisping was hanging out with the boys in Vegas, right? They came, they picked him up. They wanted to go hang out with him. Bisping obviously was there, doing some commentary for the fights. And so they started driving around. Michael Bisping is apparently like, I'm kind of a bitch now. I'm not a man. I'm not a young man no more. I've got a whole family. I've got kids. I got a wife I love. Like, I'm not trying to do dumb shit anymore. And Khamzat and Darren Till are not on the same level. And Khamzat apparently was driving on the wrong side of the road in Vegas, swerving and dodging traffic. Michael Bisping's in the back seat screaming and telling them to stop. They get to a gas station. Michael Bisping gets out to go get some milk or some creamer for the coffee he was going to make later on in the hotel. They start doing donuts while he's getting milk in the parking lot of the gas station. He gets back in the car. Darren Till takes over. Darren Till starts doing donuts with Michael Bisping in the car. Michael Bisping again starts screaming. He's like, "You're going to get us all arrested." Comes this close to knocking an entire fuel tank out of the pump. Poor Michael Bisping was like this close to having a heart attack, apparently. So, moral of the story, don't go driving with either one of those dudes, no matter what they say. You could be fans of them. You want to live, stay out of the car. Don't do it. Let's get into some fight announcements, and then we can move on to our next week's card. As of right now, quick little update to this weekend's card. Nathaniel Wood may not have an opponent for this weekend, unfortunately. Vince Morales has been withdrawn due to an unknown illness. They're looking for a replacement for Nathaniel Wood, but at the time of the recording right now, it's about 10:30 on Wednesday night. It probably won't happen. They've only got a handful of days to secure another matchup for him. And with it being in London, everything that's going on, I just don't necessarily see anybody who could step in that short notice. But we'll see. Maybe Cowboy will come out of the mix for whatever reason.
Bantamweight.
Yeah, you never know. I don't doubt anything that Cowboy can do.
Chop off a leg.
Chris Curtis and Albert Duraev have both. What is it? Duraev. Oh, that's not a G. You're absolutely right. And Albert Duraev have both been out. Dricus Du Plessis will now face Anthony Hernandez at UFC 273 on April 9th. Just a bit of an update. Rob Font versus Marlon Chito Vera will headline UFC Fight Night April 30th. That is a fantastic banger of a fight. Must watch. Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. Hot fight alert. Tell your friends, your mom about it. Tell your child about it. They're not going to watch, but just let them know anyway. Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson is going down. UFC 274, May 7th. Another one added to that card, Tracy Cortez versus Melissa Gatto. And last but definitely not least on the same card, Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza has been added to UFC 274. Strawweight title on the line, obviously. Looks like Trevor Whitman's got another 2 fights that he's got to take care of that night. I think you were saying Gaethje is on that fight. Obviously, he's headlining that card with Charles Oliveira for the lightweight title. That's going to be another crazy ass. That whole card is going to end up being crazy by the time we get to it. Next on the list, Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori is in the works for UFC 275 June 11th. Both of them seem to be pretty easy when it comes to the contract, so I think it's easy to call it a little early right now. We should be good there. And last but not least, Miesha Tate versus Lauren Murphy has moved to UFC 276. Looks like for International Fight Week on July 2nd. That's all I got for you boys. Let's get into some fights.
Okay, that being said, Let us now look ahead to this coming weekend. A pretty great UFC Fight Night card. UFC Fight Night Volkov versus Aspinall happening at the O2 Arena in London, England. Before we get into some of the bigger fights in this card, are there any fights particularly on the prelims that you guys want to discuss? Mark?
Is it just me who gets oddly pumped for European fight nights? I don't know what it is. Like, they're so fun. Like, I really anticipate them more than the average fight night.
Huh.
I think the crowd is very different. I like different crowds. I miss us having all the different crowds from all the different countries. Because, like, Brazil brought a different energy. Like, I know it's crazy to say, but, like, I miss the hoop bamoe. I miss the shit out of that. And they're just telling people to die. But I miss it. I miss it wholeheartedly. I miss the silence from the Japanese people and hearing like I miss that shit so hard. And it kind of sucks that we have to keep bouncing between the US and Europe, it seems, maybe Australia. No, definitely not Australia. Sorry. US
it's like mainly the Apex.
Yeah. But this is the first one in the UK since.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get some more freedom here eventually, because I miss it, man. I miss it a lot.
Yeah, but that's it. I think that's it. The crowd makes it feel like it's a way bigger event than it even is when you're in Europe, and some of the places too. But the Europe crowds are crazy, like UK, Ireland, those specifically.
Oh, Ireland's nuts.
But anyway, so yeah, to mention a fight that we're not going to touch on all of them for you guys. We've had a million things we covered in this episode already. So one that we're not going to do as a true preview that I love is Jack Shore against Timur Valiev at bantamweight. The odds are a pick 'em. It is a real quality fight between two guys who are big prospects in the bantamweight division. Valiev had a hell of a resume before coming to the UFC. He dropped his debut when he got caught to Trevin Jones, but he has since bounced back and just recently beat Hani Barcelos, which is a big win. Jack Shore is still undefeated as a pro. He's 15-0. He's 4-0 in the UFC. Certainly getting his highest level opponent yet in this one. Valiev is like 18-2, I think, something along those lines. So yeah, the winner of this one is certainly going to be positioned for a probably rankings level fight. And it's a real close fight. Probably going to be a grindy one, but one you don't want to miss that's earlier on the card.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Omar, any names you want to throw out there?
Yeah, the Mike Grundy, Marquand Amirkhani fight honestly should be banger. I don't really think it's going to do anything necessarily for either one of them. I think it's going to be, probably more for Amirkhani, I think, than Grundy, but that fight is a banger of a fight. You should definitely catch that one.
Okay. All right, first fight I want to pull up here in the light heavyweight division, Nikita Krylov versus Paul Craig. We got Krylov, the Russian. He's a big man at 6'3". He has 26 professional victories, 25 by finish. He's coming off a loss against Magomed Ankalaev, who just won last weekend. He's taking on the Scotsman, Paul Craig. He himself is rather tall for light heavyweight, 6'4". 15-4 as a pro, 12 submission victories. He's on a 3-fight win streak, gentlemen. Last one was a TKO over Jamal Hill back in June. So, Mark, let me start with you. What's your take on this matchup?
It's interesting. I was about to correct you and say that Nikita Krylov is not happy with you right now, calling him Russian because he is Ukrainian.
Is he really?
But then I looked it up. He is born in Ukraine, grew up in Ukraine, but his parents are Russian. So I wonder where he stands on everything.
I wonder where.
He is vehemently against the Russian invasion.
Is he really?
I figured that being from Ukraine.
Super against it, yeah.
Okay. So there you go. But yeah, he comes out with the Ukrainian flag and everything. He reps Ukraine for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so odds first in this fight. I thought the favorite in this fight was going to be the other way, but the favorite is Krylov. He's minus 185 and Craig is plus 155. I don't know why. I assumed Craig was going to be favored here. But this is a fantastic fight. I'm kind of annoyed they took it off the main card. I get it. They want all the British fighters on the main card. But this is probably like the second biggest fight on the card, maybe third if you want to say Alan Hooker is bigger. But this is a huge fight, especially for Craig if he wins, considering it would be 4 straight wins and 6 straight unbeaten for him. He's probably getting a huge one off a win here. I am 50-50 on it. Craig, as I said, is easily on the best roll of his career. He has figured out a way to strike effectively, both offensively and defensively, which has wholly changed who he is. Earlier in his career, he was like at a helpless disadvantage on the feet, and that is no longer the case, as we've seen recently, particularly in the Shogun fights. And if he can hang around on the feet until he gets a hold of you, you are in big trouble, as Jamal Hill can attest, because the man is a lights-out submission threat. Krylov, on the other hand, is only 2-3 since coming back to the UFC after his stint fighting over in Russia, but the 3 losses are Glover, Yan, and Ankalaev. So you can't really fault him for any of those. He is a really skilled fighter, really well-rounded. He's always going for it, which sometimes gets him in trouble. And as I mentioned, he is from Ukraine, so you got to figure there may be a little extra fire right now coming into this one. The most interesting angle for me is that they both fought Magomed Ankalaev, and Craig won, yet got absolutely dominated until there was 10 seconds left in the fight. And Krylov lost, but was competitive all fight long. So it's kind of a unique one considering the results, but I actually found Krylov's performance to be the more encouraging, and it's kind of making me lean toward him here. I do think the recklessness that he fights with presents a problem for him against a guy like Craig, because you make a mistake and Craig can tap you in a second, but Krylov is also capable on the ground, as he showed us plenty of times before, even against Glover. So I know Paul Craig has this feel of like strong momentum right now, which is making me pause with this pick, but I think I'm going to land on Krylov. I think it might be a crazy fight, but I think he can avoid getting tapped, and I think he is far more dangerous on the feet and can do enough to get it done. I'm going to say Krylov decision. And also, Craig is talking about retiring in another year, which I feel like is kind of an odd take for a guy who is on his way up right now, and he's only 34 years old. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but I'm gonna go with Krylov here.
Omar, give us your take on this fight and your pick. Oh, lost your audio.
You're muted, my man.
Whoops. I really love Craig's ground game, to be honest. He has one of the more aggressive grappling games kind of in the UFC in general. His guard is extremely, extremely dangerous. People always talk about don't get in his guard, this, that, and the other, but then you end up watching him, and all that basically means is that you can't really get out of his guard. You can't punch him from the guard. He can kind of make you stagnant in his guard. Craig is not really that. Craig has literally shown he will rip somebody's arm off if they sit in his guard the wrong way. Jamal Hill's got the hospital records to prove it. He's a very, very dangerous submission artist. I think he uses his submissions a lot more effectively than other people in general in the UFC, but definitely within that weight division. Krylov, while he is good on the ground, has also shown vulnerabilities on the ground as well. And for that reason, I think Craig is just too goddamn slick on the ground to just not catch somebody like that, especially somebody who is vulnerable, somebody who isn't at maybe like Glover's level, because I don't think he would catch somebody like Glover off the top of my head. But I do think he catches Krylov. So I'm going to go with second round submission. I'm going to go with armbar.
I am with Mark on this one. I think that Krylov is more dangerous on the feet and will avoid the submission on the ground if it gets there. And I think that Craig is going to absorb more damage, and after 15 minutes, the score is going to be in Krylov's favor. There you have it, boys. Moving on in the heavyweight division, Shamil Abdurakhimov takes on Sergey Pavlovich. This is some Russia on Russia action happening in this one. Abdurakhimov, 40 years old, or should I say 40 years young. He's from Dagestan, one of those Dagestan staple guys. 20-6 coming into this fight, but he is coming off of back-to-back losses against Chris Daukaus and Curtis Blades. So not terrible losses by any stretch. Pavlovich, 14-1 as a pro, but he hasn't fought since 2019. His last win was over Maurice Green, which was a TKO. Omar, let me start with you this time. What's your take? Abdurakhimov versus Pavlovich.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn when it comes to Abdurakhimov. He has a very good, strong base, but the problem is I don't think his age works for him to be taking a lot of these shots. And at the weight class that he's at, it doesn't really take a lot to put somebody like Abdurakhimov out. Curtis Blades might be one thing, especially because that guy was going to take you down and destroy you as it was. Chris Dawkins starts to get a little bit more, although Chris Dawkins has had some success here and there recently. I'm just concerned that Shamil doesn't really have what it takes to necessarily stand in the top of that division, especially the elite of that division at heavyweight. Pavlovich also necessarily hasn't proven himself, but he has a lot less miles and is a lot younger than Abdurakhimov. So for that reason, I'm probably going to go with Pavlovich. I'll go first round KO.
Mark, give us your take.
So Pavlovich is a big favorite, minus 310. Abdurakhimov is plus 240. I think this is the Sergey Pavlovich arrival fight where the general fan realizes what a threat this guy is. First off, he is a physical monster. He's the same height as Abdurakhimov at 6'3", but he will have an 8-inch reach advantage and will be the bigger man frame-wise. He is enormous.
Wow, 8-inch reach advantage?
Yeah, crazy. He was 12-0 with 9 finishes before he debuted in the UFC, and he looked so good that he was given Alistair Overeem out of the gate in his debut, which is wild. And yes, Alistair turned him back because Alistair is the man. But that is still his only loss. And he won 2 in a row after that, both finishes. Granted, he's now been out for 2 years, but it kind of feels like his buzz just died. And now he's back getting a big chance against a guy named ranked number 10 in Abdurakhimov. Shamil is a unique heavyweight. Sometimes he gets out athleted, but other times he's just like so tricky and frustrates guys, as we saw when he finished Marcin Tybura, for example. Mm-hmm. So he's got a capable game. He's a well-rounded fighter, and I don't want to make it seem like he's not, but he's 40 years old. His opponent is 29. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster, and I think it's going to be a bad night for Shamil. I am going to say Pavlovich shows out. My only debate is first or second for the KO. I'm going to go first.
We are unanimous for this one. I also take Pavlovich by knockout, and I will go second round. I'll say that Abdurakhimov weathers the first round and then gets finished in the first few minutes in the second round.
Man, this guy has had some real bad luck. He had to pull out in 2020 because of injury. Then he had to pull out all of 2021 because of visa issues. Jesus.
Yeah, right. I knew the visa stuff, yeah.
That sucks.
All right, in the welterweight division, Gunny Nelson is back in the octagon, taking on Takashi 10 Sato. We got Gunny. Used to be one of my favorite guys.
Same.
From Iceland. Overall, as a pro, he's 17-5 with 12 of those victories coming by way of submission. He is, ladies and gentlemen, a grappling expert. And then you have Sato, 31-year-old from Japan. He's 16-4 as a pro with 13 finishes, 11 of those finishes coming by way of knockout. His last fight was a loss to Miguel Baeza. Omar, let me start with you. What's your take on Gunnar Nelson taking on Takashi Sato?
Yeah, it's hard to get a beat on Gunnar right now because Gunnar has had a lot of ups and downs in his career. He hasn't fought recently. His last few performances, while they haven't been like, he hasn't been like destroyed, he has not been winning those fights by any stretch of the imagination, and they've kind of been dominant. From Gilbert Burns was his last one, and then Leon Edwards the one right before. At no point did I think Gunnar Nelson was about to do something to either one of those guys throughout the fight, which is unfortunate because Gunnar Nelson kind of used to be that dude. So I don't really know how much confidence I have in him to pick. It's not like Takashi Sato comes with a bunch of confidence behind him either necessarily. So gun to my head, it's kind of really a toss-up, to be quite honest. I wouldn't be surprised if the lines were very, very close to one another, if there really was a pick-em fight at the end of the day. So just based off of people that I like, I'm just going to go with Gunnar Nelson by decision.
Mark, share with us what those lines are and give us your take and your pick of this fight.
So they're ridiculous, and they make no sense to me. Gunnar Nelson is minus 450, and Takashi Sato is plus 350. So as much as I'm like not a Takashi Sato guy, I almost feel like it's worth throwing something on him because I don't understand how those are the odds at all.
Yeah.
This one's tricky because, as Omar said, Gunnar has not fought for over 2 years. So it's almost like we're picking blindly here because we don't know what he's going to look like. His last 2 fights before the hiatus were losses. Granted, I thought they were competitive losses to Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards, which couldn't possibly have aged better than they have in terms of who the guys are.
Yep.
But Sato could certainly present challenges to Gunnar because he throws heat and he's a strong judo player, which is not going to make him easy for Gunnar to take down. He's been more active recently. He's been a little up and down in the UFC, but I think he's live, but I just think that the late notice of Sato stepping in combined with Gunnar's pedigree and my hopes that these 2 years off have probably given him some time to add some wrinkles to his game have me leaning toward Gunnar. I think it may be close fight early. Wouldn't shock me if it's close the whole way, but I will say Gunnar eventually takes it over, finds a little bit of a rhythm, and finds a late sub round 3.
I'm going to say that Gunnar spends a lot of time in top position on the ground. He finds the way to get the fight to the mat, and he's going to take a decision. That's it. That's the pick.
Mike, real quick, I don't know if you skipped Topuria, but I just want to make sure you don't miss that one.
Oh, I guess I did. I did skip it. I'm so sorry. I scrolled right past it. Let's go to it right now. Unless, Omar, did I skip you? I skip things sometimes.
No, you're good.
You're okay. Good. In the lightweight division, I'm very excited for this one because I'm a big Ilia Topuria fan. We have Ilia El Matador Topuria taking on Jai Black Country Banger Herbert. Yes, that is his nickname. Don't come calling me. Topuria, the young Georgian, he's only 25 years old, and he is undefeated as a pro. His record stands at 11 victories, no defeats, 10 finishes, 7 submissions. His last one being a knockout victory over Ryan Hall by way of soul snatching. Then you have Jai Herbert. He's 33-year-old. He's a hometown boy in this one, fighting out of Wolverhampton, England. He's 11-3 himself as a pro with 9 knockout victories. His last one being a knockout of Kama Worthy. Mark, let me start with you this time. Topuria versus Herbert. Give us your take, please.
So Topuria is a huge favorite. Again, maybe a little too huge. He's minus 500. Jai Herbert is plus 370. We have obviously featherweight uber prospect Ilia Topuria in this fight, but making his debut at lightweight. Unfortunately, the weight cut to 145 got away from Ilia a little bit, and he decided he had to make the move up. So we will see if his star is going to shine as brightly up a weight class as it was at 145. I do think he's been given a pretty winnable fight out of the gate. I'm a little surprised they didn't kind of just throw him right in with someone who was a little more credentialed. But I do think he'll win it. But with that said, Jai is no slouch. Despite being 1-2 in the UFC, he has a really nice pre-UFC resume. He's a knockout artist. He showed it in his last fight against Kama Worthy. He's 5 inches taller than Ilia with an 8-inch reach advantage. So the length is going to be something Ilia has to adjust to moving up to this weight class. So I feel like those odds maybe are a little too wide. But I do think that the physicality is what's going to be the difference. I think Topuria is just the far more physical fighter. Herbert's kind of a skinny guy. He doesn't really have that frame. I expect Topuria to be stronger, even up a weight class, and I think he's on a different level. Jai is a nasty striker, but I think Topuria is on a different level in his overall game than Jai is. I think he kind of bullies him here, eventually gets him down, whether it's via wrestling or even knocking him down potentially, but I'm going to say he finishes it with a sub in round 2.
Omar, Topuria, Herbert, give us your take.
Yeah, so Jai Herbert's part of the the Paddy Baddy and the Molly McCain club and all that stuff. So, one would say the superstition would lead you to believe that Herbert would win that fight, but just on paper, Ilia Topuria is he's just a bad dude, man. It's very possible that the move up to 155 kind of takes away some of the overwhelming attributes that he had at 145. Maybe he can't take down Herbert as easily as he was taking down others at 145. Maybe his striking isn't as effective at 155. Maybe the opponent's strikes are more effective on the other side, him having gone up in weight and guys hitting harder. A lot of unknown variables to really know, which is why I'm a little confused on that line. That line's a little wild. But like I said, on paper, it does seem like Topuria should have this fight in the bag. So I'll go Topuria by decision.
Okay. I like Topuria by decision as well. But I think he's going to beat Herbert up across the fight, across these 15 minutes.
Yeah, I see a lot of grappling and a lot of ground and pound.
Alrighty, moving on, going past welterweight, back into the lightweight division. Paddy the Baddy Pimblett taking on Kozula Vargas. Paddy the Baddy fighting out of Liverpool. He's the hometown boy, obviously. He's still young. He's entering his prime now. He's 27 years old. His 17-3 as a pro with 13 finishes. He's coming off a knockout victory in his UFC debut over Luigi Vendramini. Kozula Vargas, of course, the 36-year-old Mexican, record stands at 12-4 with 10 finishes of his own, coming off a win over Zhu Rong. Omar, let me start with you this time. What's your take? Paddy the Baddy. Here we go. Fight number 2 in the UFC. What are you thinking?
Yeah, so it just seems to me like this is another one of those fights where they want Paddy to win, right? They want to keep building him up. They want him to keep making an impression and keep being able to perform. Kozula hasn't had a great time in the UFC. Even his last fight was kind of a nothing to go screaming home about. Solid win, but nothing to really take away from it. Paddy's got a lot of interesting tools. He's obviously got a lot of confidence, a lot of swagger behind the way that he performs. It does affect the mental of, I would have to imagine. I can't imagine that people don't get affected by it one way or the other. Kozula's in a very interesting position, and I would have to think that there's, a little bit of pressure on him that, if he does something to Paddy, something could change for him. It could be a very big opportunity, but the reality is Paddy seems to kind of be born for these types of stressful environments, and Vargas very well may not be. So it's hard for me to pick against Paddy being hometown, kind of having everything going in his favor. So I'll go with Paddy, second round TKO.
Mark, give us your take.
So another one with a huge favorite. Paddy's minus 500. Kozula Vargas is plus 360. Again, I feel like that's excessive.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Paddy just, as I've said on here before, he's good. I don't know if he's proven he should be a minus 500 favorite in any fights at this point. But as Omar said, they did not risk moving Paddy up the line before trying to make sure he got a win in England. I think they want him to kind of have a Conor moment here, and I think he likely will, and become a household name in the UK if he's not already. So they've opted to go with Kozula Vargas, who, to be clear, is not a bad fighter. He's really 2-1 in the UFC as opposed to 1-2, and on a 2-fight winning streak, because he was certainly beating up Brock Weaver before he got DQ'd for the illegal knee. So in terms of, the actual fights, he has won 2 of them. He will be dangerous, specifically on the feet, where we all know that Paddy is prone to being hit, as he does not yet have the greatest striking defense in the world. But Paddy's taller by 3 inches. He has a reach advantage of 2 inches, which should help him a little bit there. He does have a great chin, as we all know. So even if this is purely a striking affair, while Paddy may get cracked, I still think he finds a way there. But I think he makes it even easier than that, and I think he goes to his grappling in this one. It feels like the masses are almost forgetting how dangerous Paddy's grappling can be, because his debut was just straight up swang and bang. But I think he might show it off here. Maybe it takes a couple wild exchanges for him to be like, you know what, let me try something else. But I think this ends up on the mat, and I think it kind of starts fast and furious one way or the other. Ends up on the mat, Paddy submission, round 1.
I like that pick a lot. Yeah, I totally agree. I think many people's impressions of Paddy now, because of his UFC debut, think, oh, this guy's a striker. And he most certainly is not. He is a grappler in terms of his main approach to the game.
That boy did not look like a striker. If you thought he was a striker after watching that performance, you don't know.
I didn't say I thought.
No, I know, not you. Anybody who thought that boy was a striker after watching that performance doesn't know what a striker actually looks like.
Yes.
I mean, he's an offensive striker. His offensive striking looks great.
I mean, to
Just
Mark's
not a
point,
defensive striker.
yeah, to Mark's point, Vendramini dinged him. And it was like, oh, this whole hype train might be over before it begins, but he recovered and got himself the TKO victory.
Yeah.
But I agree with Mark, and I think that he will look to grapple this time and be like, y'all must have forgot. Let me introduce you to who the real Paddy the Baddy is. And I think he will find a submission victory. I will say round 2 sounds right.
Is
round
he
2 feels right.
Is he fighting it? What weight is this at?
155.
Yeah, 155.
UFC's got these boys at 170.
Oh, really?
Really?
The website,
their website?
he has him at 170. He's got Kazula at 166 and 0.8. I don't know what the fuck they're getting these numbers from.
What?
Yeah, I don't know, dude.
One of these days, Paddy's going to royally screw up a weight cut.
Wait, did they change
so-
the weight for some reason that we're not aware of?
No, it says lightweight bout in the thing, but if you click on their names, their weight is basically 170.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I will say Paddy talks a lot about the weight and stuff like that, and it seems like he's in a different headspace, a different point in his fighting career, where I think he talks about it like he was a fighter before the UFC and he's an athlete now. He's talked about terrible weight cuts, how he used to basically almost kill himself. He talked about a story where one of his fights in England, he was basically cutting, I think he said 17 or 18 pounds. He was like 0.1 kilo or something away from dying. He was basically dehydrated. The coaches were arguing with each other that like, if he dies, it's not on me. Like shit got really serious apparently for the way that Paddy was cutting weight to the point where it wasn't good for him. And yet he still went out and apparently still won. Paddy talks about now how he's got way more control of it at this point. He's not cutting all the way down to 145. He woke up, I think today he was talking about he woke up at 165. He just needs to cut 10 pounds, all the way up till Friday to make weight. So he seems like he has a better control over his body and kind of how he's taking care of his body. I want to believe that the performance will reflect the way that he's been treating himself, hopefully. But we'll see. But I do think he's very different now than what we may have seen in his earlier days in King of the Cage. Cage
Warriors.
Cage Warriors. One of the cages.
Rage Cage.
Yeah.
Where are we here? You want to keep going?
Co-main, baby. Co-main.
You want to keep going, guys? All right, let's keep going. In the co-main event, in the featherweight division, almighty Arnold Allen takes on Dan the Hangman Hooker. This is a big fight, guys. I feel like Arnold Allen is not on a lot of people's radars as high as he is ranked in the featherweight division. Featherweight is pretty stacked as of right now. But Arnold Allen, 28 years old, fighting out of Ipswich, England. He has 17 victories, just 1 defeat, and he is on a 10-fight win streak. Part of that being an undefeated streak in the UFC. Dan Hooker, anybody who listens to this podcast or watches this show, Dan Hooker really needs no introduction. He's the 32-year-old. He's a Kiwi fighting out of New Zealand, and he moved down to featherweight recently. His record stands at 22-11. And he's coming off of a loss against Islam Makhachev. Mark, let me start with you. What is your take on this big featherweight bout between Arnold Allen and Dan Hooker?
So super tight odds here. Arnold Allen minus 125, slight favorite. Dan Hooker is even money plus 100. So yeah, I feel like the reason Arnold Allen is not on so many people's radars because he has been dying for a fight like this. He has good wins, which is why he's moved up to this level. The UFC has him ranked higher than me. I have him at 13 for what it's worth. But he's beaten Sodiq Yusuff, who we just saw. He looks good, but he hasn't quite proven it yet. Nick Lentz, who's a vet. Gilbert Melendez, who's a big name, but he's a vet. Mads Burnell, who we just talked about in Bellator. Like, he has quality wins. He just hasn't gotten a shot against like a guy, and his resume has been screaming for it. And now he is finally getting that test in Dan Hooker. moving back down to 145 pounds, which will be interesting. Not something I thought we'd ever see again out of Hooker, but here we are.
Yeah.
Allen is not going to have an easy fight. He's going to have to work through things against Dan Hooker that he has not had to in previous fights. Hooker is 3 inches taller than him. He will carry a 5-inch reach advantage. He's the larger guy in general, though Allen is strong as hell. But Hooker is the bigger frame guy. He carries far more experience in big fights than Allen does. I'm a bit concerned with Dan Hooker. He's lost 3 out of 4. The first loss in that run was the Dustin Poirier fight, which was the exact type of fight that felt like it could take years off a guy's career. Mm-hmm. And maybe it has. Yes, he beat Nasrat Haqparast a couple fights ago, but Haqparast is not on the level of other Dan Hooker opponents, nor is he on the level of an Arnold Allen. Sandwiched around that win were quick losses to Michael Chandler and Islam Makhachev. Granted, they're both elite. So it's like, I don't know. Now we get Hooker announcing he's going back to 145, which he said he would never do again. So it's like there's some troubling signs, but it's hard for me to tell if we're looking at a fall from Hooker or if it's just like tough matchmaking, Poirier, Chandler, and Makhachev. You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I may end up looking dumb. I think I'm going to roll with Dan Hooker one more time before I jump off that ship. He is a guy who hung in there for 5 rounds with Dustin Poirier in an absolute war. And I think he may be the current ceiling for where Arnold Allen is at. Allen is good everywhere. He's likely even a more dangerous finisher than we've seen because he does carry evident power. It just hasn't translated into a finish yet. I don't expect him to have an easy time taking Dan Hooker down, which is his bread and butter. Hooker's dangerous even off his back. He's going to have range advantages while they're striking. He is the better and more proven finisher. I don't know. I can't resist Dan Hooker. I'm a sucker for Dan Hooker until he really shows me that he's not the same guy. I'm going to say he turns back Arnold Allen. Great fight, but a decision for Hooker.
Omar, give us your take. Allen versus Hooker.
Yeah, so I was just looking up Arnold Allen's career, going into a little deep dive here. He has retired like a handful of people from the UFC. Like, terrifyingly so. And not just like, well, I lost to him, so I'm just going to go away somewhere. Like, Yausi Metsa lost to him, then goes to another promotion, gets a solid win, and is like, I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm not doing that again. I'm going to retire now. He's gone, right? He's beat up Mark Juan Amirkhani. He's beat up Mads Burnell, who we just talked about earlier, having a fantastic fight at Bellator. And Jordan Rinaldi. Jordan Rinaldi his last fight was against Arnold Allen. Mm-hmm. Got released from the UFC. Haven't seen him since. Just kind of gone. And Gilbert Melendez got beat up by Arnold Allen. Fucking retired right after that. And apparently the reason is because Gilbert Melendez lost 40% of the vision in his eye after getting his ass trounced by Arnold Allen. That's kind of terrifying. I'm sorry, not Gilbert Melendez. Nick Lentz, who's the other guy I forgot to mention, who retired after that fight.
Right, his eyes fucked. Yeah,
because his eye was messed up. He lost 40% of the vision in his eye.
Yep.
So I love Dan Hooker, but like that's some scary shit. So I'm gonna go with Arnold Allen by decision, and I'm gonna hope that at least Dan Hooker comes out of there without anything permanent. Because Jesus.
Yeah, I am taking Arnold Allen in this fight as well. I think that he's just going to get the better of Dan Hooker. I think that I feel the exact opposite of you, Mark. I think that we're going to see, I guess, the ceiling of Dan Hooker. I guess we have seen the ceiling of Dan Hooker, but I think this might be, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to if he would get cut after this loss, if he loses.
No.
But it would be a number of losses.
If he stays at 145, the fact is there's still fun fights for him to have down there to see if we can move him back up.
You're not cutting Dan Hooker. Get out of here.
But Arnold Allen, like Mark was saying, Arnold Allen has needed somebody with a little bit of a name in order to boost him up. The guys that he's fought Like when he fought Gilbert Melendez in 2019, most of the MMA world in that moment probably didn't really know who Gilbert Melendez was. We knew who Gilbert Melendez was. We've seen Gilbert Melendez when he was at his prime.
And he was at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and I don't know how much stock people were really putting into that fight as a way to tout him up as like the next up and comer. The performances themselves have spoken well enough that regardless of who it is, we know that he's got talent. We know he deserves to be there, but we need that matchup to solidify that is actually the case. And I think this is the one to do it with.
Yeah. Okay. If he looks great against Hooker, watch how quick the narrative changes on Arnold Allen. A lot of people will be talking about Arnold Allen.
Yeah, and I should say, for better or worse, if he does lose this fight, but he makes it competitive, it still says something. You know what I mean? I think it's still a good performance. So I think more than anything, he's got to make sure to perform on Saturday more than anything.
Great.
Okay, let's move on to the main event in the heavyweight division. Alexander Volkov taking on Tom Aspinall. So you have Volkov, the 6'7" Russian, coming in with a very impressive record of 34 victories and 9 defeats. He's coming off of a win against Marcin Tybura back in October. Tom Aspinall, the hometown boy in this one, fighting out of Manchester, England. He himself is not a small man. He's not going to be giving up a ton of size to Volk. He himself stands at 6'5". He brings in a very impressive record as a pro, but not quite as long and storied. His record is 11-2. All wins coming by way of finish, 9 knockouts. Aspinall is riding a 7-fight win streak coming into this fight night, boys. His most recent win being a TKO over Sergey Spivak. Omar, start this time. Give us your take. Volk versus Aspinall.
So, very interesting fight. I, in general, don't have a ton of confidence in Volkov. I recognize the man has skill, but when it comes to actually putting it all together and completing a night properly, I don't necessarily trust him to do that. We've seen him lose very big spots right at the very end. I don't even think Derek Lewis was the only one where he's kind of shit the bed right at the end. Tom Aspinall just seems to be the up-and-comer. I would think his hands are way faster at this point than Volkov's are. Volkov is very much the lengthy, rangy fighter, very stick and jab, stick and move, leg kicks, trying to keep you at range. Tom Aspinall is very much like a blitzer, but he's still very measured, very powerful. And I would imagine that the way that if he is training with Tyson Fury, even in the striking game, I would imagine the height's really not that big of a deal. Tyson Fury is 6'9", so I don't imagine that and I would think he's probably just as rangy as Volkov is, if not comparably so. So I would think he's gotten a few good looks when it comes to, at the minimum, the striking game. And I don't know if Volkov really presents a lot of dangers on the ground that Tom Aspinall wouldn't be able to get around. I just think Tom Aspinall has everything it takes to beat Volkov at this point. I think it really is his time to kind of be up in the heavyweight division and make things really interesting. So I will go with Tom Aspinall. I'm actually going to do KO round 1.
Round 1. Wow. Mark, give us your take. Aspinall versus Volk.
So another one with very tight odds. The co-main and the main here both are like nearly pick'ems, which is awesome. Volkov is the slight dog plus 110. Aspinall slight favorite minus 130. So yeah, we're on to the big boys. They are certainly big. Volkov is 6'7" with an 80-inch reach. But as Mike touched on, Aspinall is only 2 inches shorter with a 2-inch shorter reach. So in my mind, it doesn't feel like Aspinall is that big in comparison to Volkov, but he is. I would have thought it was more than that off the top of my head. But the 28-year-old Brit, Tom Aspinall, has arrived at the big time now. He gets a shot against a huge name in front of his home country, which should be awesome. Huge opportunity. A quick note on that. Tom Aspinall is yet to fight in front of a crowd in the UFC.
Oh, wow. His all pandemic fights?
He had 2 fights in the small arena on Yas Island before it was a crowd, and then 2 fights in the Apex. So he has obviously fought for Cage Warriors before with a crowd, but that compared to what this crowd is going to be at the O2 Arena on Saturday is not the same. He's going to have a ton of people behind him. It's going to be like nothing he's ever seen in his life. A lot of pressure for Tom Aspinall.
100%.
So
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point.
hopefully he is ready for it. I think that he will rise to it. I think this guy is our next heavyweight contender. Now, Volkov has looked great recently. He's 8-3 in the UFC. His losses are Lewis, Gane, and Blades, which is legit. But Volkov has looked really good as of late. He's getting better at using his length. He's getting better at using his power. He just looks more dangerous than he ever has in there. But as we said, he's not going to have his typical size advantage against Aspinall. And I think Aspinall is just special. I think he's an oncoming tide right now. I think his speed and his quickness, both in his hands and in his footwork, are going to be the difference in this fight for as long as it goes. I think Volkov is going to get popped clean often, just with 1-2s that he doesn't see coming, that his timing is off for. I think Aspinall can finish Volkov. I know no one in the UFC has besides Derek Lewis. Obviously, Omar thinks he can finish him as well. But I just think it's the cleanness and the precision of Tom Aspinall's boxing that gets it done, as opposed to any massive power. I think Volkov just gets hit one too many times on the nose or the jaw, and we have a moment where he crumples, and I think Aspinall finishes the job, sends the fans home happy, and blows up, more or less. So I will say Tom Aspinall, round 2, TKO.
We are unanimous once again, gentlemen, in this main event. I, too, will go with Tom Aspinall. I see him similar to Mark. I think he's going to get a late fight finish. I'm going to go TKO in the 4th round. And that's it. That's the pick. That's the show, everybody, except psych. We still have trivia. All right. This is my...
Right.
I don't know if this is my favorite part of the show or my least favorite part of the show because it's so stressful to try to craft a question for you two guys.
I'll say, let's at least let him get the question out, the poor guy.
And you're like, oh, it's B. It's B. And I'm like, God damn it.
Last week, your second question stumped us. What was it? I remember we got stumped. Bryce Mitchell was the first, and we got it in 1 second. But then you stumped us. Was it Jorge? That question? About who he had lost to? A Sunset? Or that was 2 weeks ago?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but you've been getting us with a couple lately.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Let me finish here. Okay. The new one championship bantamweight champion John Hands of Stone Lineker last fought in the UFC, or I should say left the UFC in 2019 before signing with ONE. Question number 1. Who was the last person Lineker lost to in the UFC? These are multiple choice.
I know.
Was it A,
God.
Fuck you, Mark, TJ Dillashaw?
You said it.
B, Rob Font. What did I say?
I said, go ahead.
C, Ali Bagutinov, or D, Corey Sandhagen?
So I only know it because I referenced it when I was giving my preview of Lineker
Oh, that's right.
last week.
Omar,
But
I'll
let Omar go.
I don't remember. I don't know why, but Ali Bagutinov sounds about right.
The answer is D, Corey Sandhagen. What's his last loss that sent him out of the UFC? It was a split decision loss.
You didn't even let me prove that I knew it. What if I was lying? But yes, I knew it was Sandhagen.
Okay, you're probably going to know this one too then.
I think Bogatinov was his first UFC loss, I want to say.
Wow, very good mark.
There we go.
No, you're wrong. It's wrong. It was
Build
Louis
him up to
Gaudinot.
knock him down.
Oh, yeah, he got choked out by Louis Gaudinot.
Yeah.
Well done.
Whatever happened to him?
Louis Gaudinot.
I loved him. He
Everybody
just
did, man.
disappeared. Yeah.
He had a short career, 8-5.
Yeah, man, he just left.
His
Yeah,
last fight was
he
in
was from
2018.
Yonkers too. That's why I loved him. That's right. I just remember that.
Right. I knew he was a local New York guy.
Yeah.
His last fight was Ring of Combat 65 in 2018.
Damn.
Yeah. Before that, he fought a couple times for Cage Fury, which is pretty big. He only had, other than the Ultimate Fighter finale, he only had 4 fights in the UFC.
And wasn't he like 2-2?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I remember I was mad when they cut him. I was like, why are we doing that? Yeah.
He was such a crowd favorite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Question number 2. You're probably going to know this too. Who was the last person John Hands of Stone Lineker beat in the UFC? Was it A, Marlon Chito Vera, B, Brian Boone Kelleher, C, John the Magician Dodson, or D, Michael McDonald?
I might go with B for that one.
Certainly wasn't D.
Holy shit, Michael McDonald. What a
Yeah,
throwback.
Michael McDonald hasn't fought in a minute. Wait, so what was it? Vera, Kelleher, and who?
Dodson.
I think I want to go with Kelleher. Dotson, I feel like he's beat, but that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was earlier. It's Vera Kelleher.
Honestly, it was so long ago that it probably could have been Chito Vera.
I'll say Vera, and that's what got him the Sandhagen shot, as opposed to Kelleher getting him the Sandhagen shot.
It's not bad math, actually.
Omar?
He said Kelleher.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I like your math, though.
So he defeated both of them back to back, and those were his last 2 wins before losing to Sandhagen and exiting the UFC. He beat Marlon Chito Vera in 2017 and beat Brian Boone Kelleher in 2018.
Fuck.
Nice.
1-1.
That was perfect. That was the right level of curiosity that I could elicit.
Yeah,
nice.
That was good.
All
All right, gentlemen, let us bring this episode to a close. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. If you're still watching this, seriously, thank you so much. Like it and subscribe, all the things. Once again, share this video with anybody who you know who might love MMA and not yet know about our show. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, join us in conversation on social media. DM us with a question. Comment below on YouTube if you liked anything from the show. If you didn't like anything from the show, cool. And we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the fights, because we definitely will.
Damn right.
Yes, remember these fights are afternoon fights because they're in London. I want to say the main card starts at 4:00. So yeah, if you're watching them, remember that.
Any other parting shots somewhere?
That'll be it.
All right, folks. Thanks so much. See you next week.
Peace.